It's King here. Welcome to another from Materials video. We're back with these ones, but this one took a lot of time, effort, relook over, in different cases, greater talk involving, not just with myself, but as well a mixture of different people. I spent a lot of time getting educated, a lot of time unraveling, and a lot of time, just digesting a lot of different MCU lore, power scan, looking for all different ton of shit. I just want to say that if you're new here, leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, where the case may be. I'm in a party with somebody, V, he won't say what's up because he's in the middle of playing Peak or whatever, but, in the background. And, man, just out here about it going to be running through, the case of this entire tier list. But I want to first say that, again, I spent a lot of cases of intelligence, going about running through all different run-arounds, the MCU power scaling, lore, characters, all different type of stuff. And, man, is very happy to say that not only am I putting back to some greater Explorer power scaling with this, but as well to say that I am happy that, you guys have been enjoying some of these and other case stuff, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, if you disagree with this video, like other case of videos, and want to actually greater case, understand more why I say what I say, debate, educate me, where the case may be, my Discord is RP King 3124, RP King 3124. But if you just have your own little form of different disagreement and perspective, I would love to go in here in the comment section. If you again want to go about conversation with me, my Discord is RP King 3124. Like us to go and have a depth, cohesive, cool conversation. That's not to say that I'm a very, kind and straight up stand up guy, so I ask for you to be respectful. But as well, I want to shout out with a greater case of education being brought to me by none other than the most peakiest case of power scalers on the MCU and others, being Key Issues, Crisis, and Chad Champ. Shout out to all of them. Shout out to all the people that peek over, the power scaling of the MCU, especially Ty Learn. But enough with all that talk. Enough with all the case of this, ramble, right? Just want to go and, set the record and get all that stuff out the way, right? And, of course, it's unscripted. Just have a lot of stuff in my mind. But, yeah, let's go and get into it. Get into, scaling. With first left here, right, bottom being question mark / no scaling, is characters that either have no true showcase of stuff, either I do not know at all or don't know the greater height of power scaling for, I have not seen or peeked about, or just very weird characters to try to go ahead and suggest or consider for scaling. So a bunch of examples are here, but examples go from Rhino, She-Hulk, Bass in human form, Ant-Man's daughter, Domino, Gia, Quicksilver. You got, this random form pictures that are multi-form within this tier list, right? As I've put my own different case and makes different characters, but this is also in cooperation with another person that made this tier list. Shout out to them. But as well, you got the High Evolutionary and Adam Warlock. I'll explain a little bit of them because, unironically, they might be more different case of characters, that be in this if I would have them on mine or have them just on hand. But all these characters in their own right have credit to possibly be able to scale somewhere, but it's just so weird and so inconsistent and so not very definitive that it's a very weird way to really try to suggest and congruently say anything about them. So again, when it comes onto this tier list, if you have an idea for what it could scale, go ahead. I've said this before. There's a tier that I've made in multiple different forms of my power scaling tier list, or any type of tier list involving the case of people that I either don't know, don't care, or I don't have the most concrete way to go about scaling, or we need to see more. And some of these characters might show up in Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars and provide greater opening and introspection when it comes down to the characters' actual power scaling. But I feel like this is enough to not only just prove and shine the fact that, again, there's not that much to be known about them, and I don't really want to go over them too much, and it's already coming to a kind of long speaking. But suffice to say, about the High Evolutionary, not only does he not show enough, his durability by all mixed account is not the best. His ways of telepathicness and technology usage is kind of weird, mixy, and there's a lot of mixed arguments for people being more faster, people being able to one-shot him and able to get their hits on him. His way of hurting or immobilizing people is a very mixed thing, and it really would depend on the scenario to really suggest he could do a lot. There's also his attitude, so his personality being a mix to really try to credit him in some greater overarching scaling. I would like to say that, he could be somewhere greater, but I just feel like there's a lot of different loopholes and whataboutism to say for him. Adam Warlock is a greater example of that, with the fact that not only is he not of his full potential, he came out the pod as a child in a grown man's body. He did not become the ultimate life form that he has seen like in the comics and other iterations. He reasonably, you could say, is stronger than all the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy, but does not have the experience is not a fighter. He's not very strong a lot, and he can be harmed and or maybe even put down by little shit if we take it to the fact that they can't just be by his clumsy joke character, but he is able to be harmed by all of the members in some way or be put down or pushed back. And a lot of things that he could do to others, he could not actually case like send the means of death their way or actually execute them where they are in the grand scope. Just looking at him in character ties what mixed matter of him not being that type of character by the end. And we most likely won't see more from him because not only are the Guardians of the Galaxy seemingly done, contracts are done, and there's no reports about Adam Warlock being in the new Avengers movie or the Guardians of the Galaxy anyway. Because if the MCU does get rebooted, we most likely are only going to be seeing X-Men, Fantastic Four, the new Avengers, and maybe a few different obscure teams, but they're going entirely a different direction from them. And if we do see Guardians of the Galaxy members, I wouldn't be surprised if only the mainline people are one-off. So, I don't know. I can't tell you, though. If you want to try to scale him, there's a possibility. Like all of them, it just will be a very, mixed whoppy-doo ting. But this also goes for others. Like, we haven't seen that much from, Corum. Cersei's very situational people. Khonshu didn't really deliver too much in Greater Overarching, showcasing the power, scale, and capabilities. But, there's a lot to be talked about there. Tech Jacket, Mantis is very situational. And then the Warriors 3, aka, all of Thor's friends is mixed. Other Egyptian gods, random gods and mention. There's just a ton of people, right? And that goes for Sprite and Ajax. And it's just a very mixed, weird tier list. But yeah, I hope I've summed that up. Next tier is just some dudes, which just involves John Walker's friend and Shocker, just some random one-off dudes that don't really have any true credit of scaling, and more than supposed to be a joke for two bozos in their own argument, right? No offense to like the actors or whatever, but when we actually get into some overall greater grandstand talking, which is going to be, Shield Agent, and showing a little bit more of the tier list that is being said, right? We talking to some more greater overall talking. So at the bottom of some true worth scaling would be Nick Fury, very, skill, fame, mixed regard, person and skill and different merit of, capabilities, but it's not really a high tier or on greater case of person. His Shield Agent standing is, some great thing, and his tactical mind is good, but these are people who not just only be better, hand-to-hand combat-wise, better specialties, better comparable scale, and have arguably better merit and statement by another person that would just be of higher grandstand than them. So yeah, that goes to like Jessica Jones' friend. You have Peggy Carter, who makes you greater form with her gun and different arsenal. You have the second command of Shield, who have a higher different mixed regard and showcasings than Nick Fury, as Nick Fury is not a very multi-shown, like very durable and greater scale person. And even though it is a scroll taking the form of different showcases of them in greater form, there's an argument that they could pull those same mixed different feats and or capabilities of skill better than them. You have this blonde Shield Agent, right? And I also wanted to go about saying this because it's something I didn't really think about, because of the fact that kind of should make this be obvious, right? As with the case of the tier list and everything to be said, obviously with the screen and title, this is going to be every MCU character to 2025 ranked. I'm not going to be doing hypothetical what if different confirmed characters because they haven't been shown. I'm doing every broad grandstand of the MCU and just looking at the tier list. I know a few of y'all have paused and maybe clicked off already, right? Again, if you disagree and actually want to have a true conversation about this and show some actual greater tick of intelligence, right, as the boys, Pump Precise to be able to do, right, with this, you can understand the fact that there's a lot of different shit hypothetically connected to the MCU, but I'm doing the most consistent, most known people. I'm not doing one-off niggas, and most importantly, I'm doing shit that's very much debatably, very much more concrete, consecutive, set in stone canon. So I'm doing all of the grandstand known MCU with all the movies, TV shows, canon set in stone shows that tie to Daredevil, Defenders, doing some different reach out within Spider-Man, it's a different reach out with what the multiverse was shown to be, and Deadpool and Wolverine, that's canon. Deadpool's movies, but I'm not talking about greater stuff with Sony. I'm not talking about Venom. I'm not talking about greater stuff with Fox. I'm not talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is mixed to even be canon. I'm not talking about Cloak and Dagger. And a lot of these things will be very mixed scaling that I couldn't actually scale, or simply would be tapping into way more longer shit. And this tier list is already long as it is, so I don't want to go too much into greater grand scope stir of a bunch of random talk that, again, is not deliberately verbatim shown and actually credible, consistent, with the stuff that we actually know, lore-wise or power scaling-wise. And so, yes, this tier list is going to have a lot of different mixed people, but there are credible people to be talked about and or be in some sense of matter of, canon to the mix of knowledge, MCU, multiverse, and timeline. So that's why Punisher from Punisher Warzone is here. RIP to the actor that played him. May God rest his soul. Daredevil from Ben Affleck. Venom from Spider-Man 3. All that shit, you know what I'm saying? And, speaking of that, I didn't mean to go and put Toby's Spider-Man here with the symbiote. Ignore that. We'll tap more into that. But, yeah, simple as that. But, yeah, we'll go ahead and keep talking. We have John Walker Pre coming into a super soldier serum, with him not only being a human specimen, talk about multiple regards, unlike in the case in comparison to Steve Rogers, being actually a very formidable and great scale person in the matter for, his physical regard as a person, being a great veteran, skill regarded person, elite in a lot of different forms, is officially one built different regard of nigga. And so coming to a super soldier shit advanced him to a way heck of, most ridiculous regard, right? And, he is very much, a efficient, elite, standing person when it comes down to as a soldier and other aspects of shit. So with all that scaling to be said and being top of the craft for, the military and other ranks and, Shield being in comparison to that, I feel like not just that, but also just his peak human athlete capabilities would allow him to outdo and win different sides of the battle with the people below, right? But above him would be Red Skull, not only from having a better potent mixed matter of super soldier serum that maybe you could try to stretch argue depending on what you believe is a stronger dose of serum depending on the people that give it, from Hydra, the government now, and the government in comparison and feats, but as well is a very great tactical mind, greatest member of Hydra, was a threat to First Avenger Cap. He's very stylistically, he's a strong sense matter of, foe and dude, and definitely could put the beats on him in the grand scope and outmaneuver him. But then you have Punisher Warzone, who has all the accolades and run around of, talks of being an elite level strategist, proficient shot, marksman, shooter, glorified, executioner with his moves, and pulls different most craked out, of fucking video game level logic in his movie. Is ridiculously skilled, robust in his shooting, of different arsenal, right? Able to take off people's bodies, put holes in people, moving like this man freaking blood sport in the case of the DCU. Punisher is not only one nasty vato to fight, but is one of the most efficient, ridiculously built different, and crazed case of shooters like no other. He's ambidextrous, very punishing, no pun intended, when it comes down to shit, and could just outmaneuver and dead shot a lot of these people. But the people above will not only be greater mixed matter or faster, bullet resistant, or flat out bulletproof, or just way too high credit skilled to just dominate, through all these other people below, but just simply, take everything he can give and can just easily overpower and just ding him out of commission, and just him getting bludgeoned by them in a matter of seconds, most likely, would be the case. Jessica Jones is here for the record of her being a decent matter of adept, superhuman, skilled, prowess, decent fighter, said by the Americans, scale by pretty decent regard, intelligent people, and also matter of, how she's been able to deal with different trained foes and the defenders, the hand, elite martial artists, mercenaries, thugs, all that, been able to take them. She is to an extent greatly bullet resistant or very adept and durable, so a lot of what they could throw at her wouldn't work. She can jump super high, she's very strong, and again, mixed matter, taught with a lot more greater case, form person than a lot of other people. You have the Red Guardian, who is not only obviously a super soldier, he's a very washed super soldier, but he's just way too strong. His armor would be impenetrable for a lot of them, and he does have some mixed matter of skill. He doesn't use a lot of it because I swear this man is half drunk half of the time, but if he was actually trying to full fight, showing a little bit against Taskmaster, there's some level of standing toe to toe, and this is obviously from the record of Black Widow because that's when he actually first appeared, because I know a lot of people haven't watched that movie, but he did stand some sensible, decent regard of scaling. Do you have Blonsky? This is Abomination when he was a super soldier. not only has a different hell regard of being on the same scope of like Captain America and the matter for potential and capabilities, but he had a super serum that was like a reacting to like gamma radiation with a similar mixed matter, and was on the same retroactive like sentiment for being just a peak human regard. Now, granted, his actual feats do not demonstrate on the same level of Captain America, so that statement or mixed case of like standing is not really the case, and now it's more just trying to hype him up. But he does show the capability to outmaneuver Incredible Hulk of 2008. He was able to take different mixed matter of blows. He was able to outrun military jeeps, able to keep up with different, bullets in different epic scale, different forms, like, fighting form. He can utilize weapons in very great regard. He's a very rag of all trades fighter and is very unhinged. So he most likely would just be able to speed blitz and outmaneuver and put down people for the count. You have this Red Scarlet Ninja. I think his name was Mabu. Mabu is a fishing grade A record, warrior and assassin of the hand, right? And was like by different mixed accounts like a little bit under Elektra. It's a different account, but is just a very much more skilled person. He's able to fight a early, not entirely a fish out of water, but coming up Daredevil, and gave him a fight. I think he beat Daredevil the first time they fought, so that should just secure him here anyway, and he could just outdo and just Weave Nation dominate a lot of these people, right? He's just way too high key scaled. But in the twins that fought Iron Fist would be two ridiculously rack of all trades scale people that would just stand of a hard regard. Then a lot of these people, especially because it's technically supposed to be one person. So in this sense, 2-on-1, enough said. They were able to fight Iron Fist. They were an account of being, top hand warriors, assassins, killers to fight him. They got a very unique, very dualistic case of technique and would just outmaneuver and put down these people for the count and could just pressurize them to the greatest regard with that. But then you have Kate, a.k.a. Haley Steinfeld, a.k.a. the successor to Hawkeye. She's an elite grade A shot, very efficient with the bow, has a lot of techniques, hacks, and capabilities of technology to outmaneuver a lot of these people, and is one, ridiculously skilled combatant in different forms. She was able to take decent matter of blows to Kingpin, keep up with Hawkeye in some different mixed matter, and is very skilled enough to where, even though jokingly between them, fight Black Widow's sister and not like get pulverized or get entirely fodderized into next week and get ragdolled. But I think that's her formidableness against those people, her runner-up, status and stance with shit, and just being a very close quarter, dog, but also in great range with her shit. And she has a multitude of most cracked, shit that can not only immobilize, gas, blind, disorientated, and just a very fly off the handles, shawty. And it's great creative, skilled combatant. Granted, I don't think her martial arts skill is as adept as, the people I put before, but I think that she just has a lot more at her disposal that she could outdo and fight. And depending on the scenario, she can be very adaptive and creative in her own creative matter. So yeah, simple as that. But going from Shield Agent right to Superhuman, at the bottom we have Elektra. This is Elektra in her base form. This is not resurrected Elektra. She has a lot more better merit and tale of feats that get her to where she should be. Elektra was not only said to be the greatest assassin and fighter of the hand, has been a great A-League of assassin-like person for a very long time. Daredevil put her in, great sense of regard. Daredevil teamed up with her, had a great deal of likeness and respect for her. She was very feared. And even though she could not take on the hand by herself, the hand was very frightened at her, portraying them and doing all kinds of the shit that she did, and was one tremendously high case key skilled person. And not only like Daredevil and Punisher put her in like great standing of, skill regard, she would be one high class fighter that could dummy, scissor through people, and her skill with the size is unmatched, bro. She like Melina if she actually got a win for once. But then you got all these different mixed matter of, hand fighters that were said to be great fighters to not only face Iron Fist, gave him a mixed deal, good, decent fight and run for his money, even without using the actual Iron Fist, and were very much clean, creative, fighters and glorified demons in their own fighting. And to me, shine a great matter of, proficiency and capabilities like no other. So yeah, simple as that, B. And then you got Stick, who trained Daredevil, is very skilled while being blind himself. Crazy, matter of, experience, capabilities, rocked with Daredevil and gave him a decent fight. Has a great deal of health, being one of the most severe, dangers to not just the hand, but Daredevil himself if he wanted to. And Stick is one unlike no other, and his unbridled, level of strength when you really get on. So I believe with those close quarters things, scaling to somebody of different higher grade merit, and very much versatile, his own matter of usage, as this nigga got like a nunchucks for a cane, anime for no reason, right? Like, this nigga skilled as fuck. Then Typhoon Mary, even though with context, is able to hurt Iron Fist, is very skilled, unhinged, deranged shawty. She's like a yandere, and she would just go to different lengths and of orthodoxness that I feel like a lot of people can compare to. I can see Stick beating her from his experience and better height of the creative shit, but I think Typhoon Mary from her scaling, skill, different matter of shit, and Iron Fist saying that she's a very skilled, ridiculously crazy woman that has ridiculous, height and stature of, skill and model of this being bloodlusted and crazy like no other. So I believe that in the end all be all, like, she would be on her marquee timing and just kind of cruise through niggas. I'm not gonna lie. Then you got Kingpin, who should be demonstrably way stronger than any of them. None of them could budge him. None of them could push him. Bullets do not bring the biggest head effect, to him, right? As in this sense, he's kind of like some of them niggas in Fast and Furious, where he's like audaciously superhuman. This man's on compound V from just drinking wine half of the time. Whatever this fat ass is eating is putting him on some higher bulk, power stand, right? Like, no offense, because this is a stellar villain. Shout out to the actor, right? Phenomenal. But I'm just saying, like, this man is so dummy boy, more built different, crackhead strength, polarizing, difference in matter of strength and skill to mix attitude. As even though he was getting out skilled, he does showcase the capability to hold his own and mix different cracking and bucking with people. He's able to break this man Bullseye's back, and the Daredevil suit is very strong, can hold on, brawl, and rock off, with the greatest case of people, beat the fuck out of Frank Castle, and it's just a whole different monster of a dude. But the people above would not only beat him from having possible greater arsenal, skill, repertoire, and the scenario to say, but I definitely think you have a lot of arguments said that they would be of a whole different regard. I also do not want to put Cable here as well. I just realized that I was in the middle of a game in some different occasions when I was putting these in tier people here. Like, I obviously know where I want to have them. You guys see the greater Dota tier list. I know. But it's an obvious for where I'm going to be putting these people in greater regard. There's a lot more to be said, but I do want to say that, there's a lot of things to be said about this man, Cable, right? Where you can put him a lot more higher if you want to say if he had his full shit. But obviously I want to say that, you guys see the greater deal shit. I kind of want to make that clear while still having this man put somewhere. But yeah, I want to say that, strongly be here. I'll discuss that more. But again, I'm kind of want to show a little bit more details. But let's just stay on topic here, right? We got Julius Polisi, like, level dude, but it's GSP, right? And don't get to it, GSP is a legend. Not going to disregard that. I'm just saying, like, this dude on the most goofy, high, crazy, whoppy-doo, wild form of fighting maneuvers would be not only over Kingpin from scaling to Captain America and be able to harm him a little bit, that shows his durability, but also stacking way and greater repertoire of scale, of, skill and capabilities. Hale, he was said to be a very, efficient Hydra soldier and agent, and they thought very confidently that he could beat Captain America, which is, makes just them being cocky and thinking that they really sweet. Because Hydra has been proven multiple times wrong by multiple people in the MCU of, like, just throwing random people at him. But he was able to actually trade and do some creative, great, sense of fighting stance and capability against this man, Steve Rogers, to probably say that he's not only of great standing of skill, but very, remarkable in his own form. So I don't think a lot of people can face this fucking Capoeira fucking menace, right? But then we have Daredevil himself, taken obviously to now, because everything's supposed to be accounting for now what we know about him, is a very ridiculously skilled person. His accolades and skill set is way too built different. He's beaten a lot of people below him. Skills a lot more higher than a lot of people below him. He's traded hands and blows with the most skilled, high-key, ridiculous matter of niggas, and is one of the most peak, vigilantes in the MCU. It's unfortunate, that his show within the MCU full canon showcasing is very much a degrade from the peakness that is his original show, but it doesn't matter. Hopefully, season 2 does better to deliver. Regardless, though, he's very crazy. I even forgot to even put Muse on here. I don't know where Greg Case put Muse. Probably like still up in this tier maybe below. There's a lot of different characters. I feel like I'm kind of fucking up here, but we already too much into it. Let's just keep going. But Muse also has mixed scale credibility to even be on the same level because Daredevil was just thousands of times way more greater skilled and capable than him, and the MCU doesn't showcase the wacky greater form connections to Eldritch seeming power like in the comics. So I don't even know where you would even really constitute him, to be honest. I have to really look over that. But still, to full, talk about his scale to this man Bullseye and his armor, and kind of considering Bullseye in general with this, right, as his peakest version, is not only the fact that Bullseye is a ridiculously creative and unparalleled marksman. He could do a lot of things in the fight that people can't. He doesn't miss. He could turn anything into a weapon. You get this nigga a controller. He could annihilate an entire squadron of niggas. He is built different. He was able to outbox and win a lot of the fights that Daredevil had. Daredevil needed a lot of mixed context and situations to beat him. He was beating the dog shit out of Daredevil a lot of the time. He had this man Daredevil take him to the longest, grandest, greatest fighting they ever needed him to have. And you have this man beating this dude Daredevil a lot of the time in a lot of these even close quarter scenarios. He would have killed Kingpin and his wife if it wasn't for the environment mixed situation, him getting double teamed, but not only Daredevil and Kingpin. And he's just a ridiculous regard dude, and his skill set just from being a peak regard shooter, killer, having the most kind of mutant seeming stylistically devastating ability where he can literally make any form of inanimate object a weapon, right? And was trained to the most fullest killer instinct regard at a very young age to be a living weapon, a living, sleek shot in every case of the way. So he's just ridiculous. And if this man ever comes to Marvel Rivals, best believe that will be the time where I start Xing out of Marvel Rivals, because that nigga ain't gonna miss. It's whatever though. Next we have Moon Knight though, with his silly, sleek suit version or his greater magical version. Now I know some people might be confused why he's down here. Not only because he hasn't tapped into his greater magical capabilities, Moon Knight is not objectively, to the most greatest regard, high greater take skill person. He plays around a lot. His mental is a lot of his problem. He's a very mixed, clumsy crash out. And when he spazzes out, he potentially pops off into a greater form of capability. But not only does everyone else above and some parts arguably below have greater skill regard or their ability to where he would be taken out, his healing factor, some of his whimsical capabilities, and the fact that you could argue his connection to Khonshu is so great that he could find a way to kind of power through a lot of shit. He has incredible will and showcasing. He doesn't have that much, and you chop that up to arguably the badness of the show, agree or disagree, or just the fact that it's on a Disney show, so he can't really show what he does like in the comics, where he is an elite killer like no other, right? But his random bullshit can only go for so long, and there's a lot of reasons where, these people above will just outdo him in a lot of stuff. But I like to say that he's of some great regard stand, and his skill is of something, right? But his skill is mainly just being able to overpower a lot of the people that he faces, or he's just so superhuman and above a lot of people, which is why he's in superhumans here. But next we have High Shield Agent, where you got all these masters of the hand. This lady who has chi manipulation, ridiculously rack of all trades, possibly maneuvers to not only deliver the most swift defeat of people, decisively close the gap and dominate people, is feared among the hand, is the most dangerous of the hand, and is one crazy record hold of, skilled person where ain't nobody generally in their hand except for the ultimate weapon that is more impregnable and impetuous than them, this Elektra could actually beat. The reason why other people above would beat her, not only because they're not mainline, full-fledged, close hand-to-hand brawling people, but also because whatever she possibly needs to give, out from them to defeat them, right, would be also the greatest way for her to kill them. As not only is she older, kind of slower, she doesn't really fight primarily in big on one to kill these people, and a lot of her mental tricks and kind of like spiritual gymnastics would not really work on them. Not only because they don't utilize chi, they're not very much out of touch with the capability to face someone like her. They're also way too severely skilled, and unlike these other people below, she actually has the capability to harm people in the same similar regard, and or they would actually have ways to greater overarchingly kill them. It's also just the skill record. So it's kind of tied to statements, but these people like Jigsaw and Punisher will way overarchingly be of greater stand of skill. You know, Punisher had a mixed contingent fighting battle against this man Jigsaw. Punisher was able to beat Daredevil almost. He is a greater A marksman than anyone else. He is one beaming different, hot streak shot killer, right, when it comes down to, his way of shooting, his accolades, his feats, his statements, how he's able to fight in close fighting, his multi-gallery of fighting, his arsenal. He's a literally walking armory, judge, jury, executioner. This nigga don't miss. Savage, ruthless, could run through people like no other. Is a great A standing person. He's always stood to Daredevil, but I would say because of his battle IQ, his expertise, and his very creative aspect of demon time standing, right? It's the same nigga that put blades in his own flesh as weapons. This guy is one severely demon, great A killer, death in combat vests and combat boots. The goddamn Punisher, John Berthal, is the GOAT, right? But that's mainly the credit for why he's going to do what he's going to do. Plus, I just see how he's going to do things in a fight, depending on the scenario, be better pit for pit, bang for bang than a lot of these people. Simple as that. But anyway, next we have, Goom that was trying to go fight Shang-Chi. And, Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings, peak movie, what is being said. But because of the fact of his statements, accolades, his, way more high potent thing, his armor, his skill as every member of the Mandarin's, gang of dudes, right? His entire case of like League of Assassins are the most highest grade revered greater scale people, and have a statement similar to like Kraven the Hunter or Sable in the Insomniac games of being the most skilled in the world. So the greater echelon of skill would prove more useful for him. But then M'Baku, right? It only gave a T'Challa, right, that was without Herb, but still very skilled at challenge. He was said to be one of the greatest threats to Killmonger, right, to overarching beat in physical regard and with the Herb. But as well, it's said to be like the most strongest physical dude in his entire tribe, one of the most physically strongest dudes in Wakanda. His armor and capabilities are all theoretically advanced Wakandan mixed matter of armor and accessory. His wood is not normal wood. He was able to take a punch from the Moor and survive. You could chop that up to plot armor, to plot relevance, but it is what it is. So his durability would be way ridiculous. He's also scaled to like a bunch of monsters in Infinity War. He's scaled to people with higher record, and that goes for the guy below him. And I just feel like his skill would decisively give him better impression to best. But then this, ninja of the Mandarin, right, that like 6'6", like case of impression of him and his scaling the Shang-Chi would not only give him better essence of, skill, regard, proficiency in that record, but also give him better, acknowledgement to be on a whole different level in comparison, and also his gadgetry and weaponry and his way of fighting, and the fact that he has like poisons and all this different type of shit would allow him to sufficiently best him. T'Challa without the Herb, aka Black Panther, with these weapons and all that shit, not only scaled to a Killmonger without the Herb, and I don't know how he got beat if we want to actually talk about the real shit, but I'm not here to critique Killmonger and the writing of Black Panther 1, like in my, MC Villains tier list, shameless plug to that, or even like my case of every superhero movie / show, ranked from worst to best, shameless plug as well. But regardless, would be a hell of greater scanning, and even with the Herb, his skill is of high regard caliber, so I would say he would beat him. Same thing goes with Killmonger, adept with his swords and his weaponry, very skilled, better experience, greater veterinar shit, and is one brutal motherfucker, what I'm saying, and very bulk, mass strength people in comparison to him. He'll be able to find ways to break down, cut down, and crack out the greater wacky moves of, sense of like very much, uneasy, orthodox predator stance but could just cleave and crack out, their defense multiple times to open them up. And against T'Challa, just was on greater mixed style, merit of just being one like unhinged, visceral person. He's very vicious. So yeah, I could just see him breaking down a lot of people and like the Predator from Prey, just bodying. Taskmaster, though, of Black Widow or Thunderbolts, you could argue about their scale. Not only did she have a photographic memory, she's able to adapt to a lot of people's capabilities. She stood decently toe-to-toe with Black Widow, right? Was able to, some occasions best with Laura in different matters standing. But, her main pullback was not only her mind is kind of computer-defined. The fact is that even though they did best her in some different mixed regards, she has ridiculously high durability, but there is ways to beat her down and be able to protrude for her defense and armor, right? Because they cracked her mask and did different things, so she can be overarchingly pushed past, but as well can be if someone like had a gun or had things durable to that. We saw her get literally headshot in Thunderbolts, so yeah, like she's just not, very much that. We could argue all day about, she's greater than her Thunderbolts version. I think she'll be greater not only from her uses of weaponry, greater scaling, skill shown in that, and capabilities, but I just feel like, she's on the same record of degree of, being a high class, great assassin and, mercenary, and being one of the most, high skilled people at the time and other times as well. So yeah, I like to say that would outdo them, and plus she has all the skills and decent sense of durability to stand toe to toe against them, and she could replicate a lot of the different skill sets of other people below. But the more durable people, she has a lot of weapons and arsenal to beat. So there you go. And I would say she has a little bit more in Thunderbolts. But anyway, we have Elektra of the Daredevil movie and her own movie, showcasing that she is very whimsical and wild cardly when she does her shit. And then when I say whimsical, I mean entirely supernatural, but I mean just theoretically very normal for a lot of aspects. And it cracks out a lot of the most, weirdum, tit for tat, crazy capabilities. She is the most skilled fighter of the hand, by his own statement. Daredevil puts her in high matter of different record regard. They do higher, greater standing, stamp, pit for pit capabilities. They're able to fight side by side to some higher scale people, right? And as well, by Elektra scaling, the fact that Daredevil, by all reasonable count, is stronger still than Elektra, and she, survived, what happened with her, instead of in comparison, Daredevil, because Daredevil went out on his own, right, because of his pride. She would not be as skilled as him. She didn't even think she was as skilled. She even thinks she was on the same capability like him, and she just mainly said that the fact that she puts him in high regard. It's shown verbatim in the movies that Daredevil was on a whole different stand of, capabilities and pit for pit, bang for bang. But, the fact that he wasn't able to do this is why she didn't feel very confident in, their, mission, and as well in their chances. But all around, she's a very high skilled person, has ridiculous accolades, experience, was a, high class tier assassin on, the hand, and was running around doing the most crazy matter of shit, and is one, lethal vato. So I would like to say that Shawty would just best a lot of these people. Daredevil was on the same cuffs, right? Ridiculously skilled. His, echolocation is better than MCU Daredevil. He is very a lot more wacky, crazy. Is very kinetic. His slinging skill, acrobatics, and other form of shit is very crazy. Very highly intelligent. Very crazily agile, and just too clean cutter with his moves to where I would say he would just sufficely outdo and box almost everybody below in the most craziest ways. Now Shang-Chi and base, right, I would put here, not only from the fact that Shang-Chi is one ridiculously high scale regard person and can best people in the most ridiculous regards, but as well, skill and accolades is so high tier that Mandarin still says he's his greatest weapon that failed him, right? He's very proficient. He can outbox, outdo, and simply put, dominate for a lot of the most skilled record people. He was an elite assassin himself and has statements and accolades of being one of the most high record of, vigorous, great skilled niggas of the MCU. And his skill set is multi-versatile, even if it is one linear set thing. And even with that skill, is able to take on the greatest odds, and with this stand pretty toe-to-toe to great, high record skill people, and is just one undisputedly peak hands dude. And Valara mix, slash, Black Widow's sister, if I'm saying her name right, and her, pre-Civil War like self are on that same regard. Obviously she was able to best her, and would have fully bested her if she didn't realize she was her sister. She showcased better case scaling matter, and Black Widow's sister and her scale about the same. You could argue on who is actually greater than the other, but I feel like Black Widow is greater not only from her better expertise, better scaling, hacks, tech, skill set, weaponry, all different regards of that, and just how they stand. But they're definitely the most two peakest, regarded people, and both have statements about being the most dangerous killers on Earth, dangerous women on Earth, elite prime, example for what it means to be cutthroat, killatize, and agile, and very creative, with fighting, no repetition. These people can pull all different type of ways to really, really size up and seize opportunity in the most lethal regard. They're stylistically the most clean cutter, combatants and crack fiends and speed, and they just are able to overshine and outdo lastically, people. Very aerodynamic. They can pull a lot of different things that other people can't, and depending on the situation, can use a lot of the capabilities of the person against them. There's also the fact of the matter is that Black Widow mixed case, standing to different high mixed caliber credit people. She was able to knock off Ant-Man. Yeah, it's ridiculous regard. Shawty's, both elite fighters. Peak wham. You know what I'm saying? And in the case of their durability and great case stance, I just think there's also an argument that they are also peak grade A, somewhat standing as super soldiers. They obviously don't have a super soldier serum. That's something that some people don't know and do know. In the comics, that's a little bit different. They did get experimented or, augmentation to make them seem to great stand peak human, but are not super soldiers. Like in the comics in comparison, they had that happen, not with the super soldier thing, because I mean not exactly with the comics, but in the sense that they are great, combatants that scale and rock and do all these different mixed matter of things, and are said to be better than mixed different claimed super soldiers that mix scale below or before. So I like to say that puts them in a higher regards in comparison. Now, next mid-tier superhuman, we have Kroll, aka the black market dealer. The fucking, what is the other creditive word, right? He's obviously the black market dealer, like I said, but he's the obsessive gambler. He was cool with Killmonger for a time, and was an arms dealer for vibranium and different weapons, right? So this thief, this twat, right, is not only mixed bag skill, different mixed matter of arsenal, but has a literal Tesla cannon on his right forearm that is able to one-shot a BMW or big-ass cruiser, and is able to put big damage into different things, and does things with it that other people below, and maybe if you stretch above, depending on the case scenario, could not survive. But not only are these people faster, they take more, they have healing factors, are very resistant and very resourceful, and just simply put, his IQ is not the most grade form high. He's not a full dumbass, but this guy is very much a goofy goober and a mustache trolling villain. He's a crazed lad. Shout out to the case of, the GOAT himself, one of the most high renowned and reasonably, undeniably peak actors of Hollywood, bro. My man that's played Caesar, right? Shout out to him, right? Man is an epic actor and always sells in his performance, right? And Vander is built different, right? He always will, again, sell the show and a lot of his stuff. But it's undeniable that Andy Serkis, or whatever the fuck he'll do, right, is not the most durable person. His durability, by all credit, is still just a human. It's mainly a Tesla cannon, but if he was at full power, greater case of range, and depending on scenario, I think he would just be able to slap these people and going on consistency. There's not really any scenario I see just going off of the durability, pit for pit, bang for bang, for them to actually be able to survive this shot or get around it. Everyone else above could either survive it, theoretically punch it, or could move around it by all the mixed scaling chain. Especially because everybody below is still able to be threatened by bullets and conventional shit, and he has a little fucking bazooka on his arm. So no, I don't really see that happening. But then you have Ajax, the villain of Deadpool 1. He was able to, in some occasions, beat the fuck out of Deadpool. He was able to go Def Jam fight for New York. He's very skilled and acrobatic, very clean cutter with those axes. This man is dual wielding axes like Berserker. So he's very skilled. He's a mutant. He's super strong. He's able to bully base humans, and he's able to put in great work against Deadpool. And he's been said to be a very dangerous foe that Deadpool could not beat alone. And there's an argument, just Deadpool 1 at least, if it wasn't for the environment and situation, Deadpool would have beat him. And he was arguably killing him sometimes in the fights. So he's a very skilled regard dude. And his skill is very high tier. So I think this is very reasonable to put him here. X-23, not only growing from what she's done in Logan, where she was tearing niggas to shreds. Logan peak movie, bro. Like, ain't no niggas gonna deny that. But she has not just only fought alongside these different creative people of, greater boosts in regard, but as well stands tit for tat with a lot of different matter people, has statements about being just as strong as Logan, and at least Logan's version, and has a great grandstand, standing tit for tit in greater form than a lot of others, has a healing factor. We don't know how ridiculous it is. It's probably not the same as her technical daddy, but she definitely is very proficient, very skilled, very crazy, got the same honey badger in her like her dad, and is very efficient. I love these cute glasses that she got. But yeah, she's very crazy. Shawty is unequivocally a beast in all different working proportions like no other. So yeah, like simple as that when it comes down to her shining of, skill and brutatiousness and ravage speed and all that. Deadpool though, Wade Wilson, our favorite, that kind of the most weirdest statement ever. Our favorite, because somebody was saying favorite or saying favy. I don't even know if favy's a fucking word. I don't know if I even technically have a mess with there. Regardless, I was gonna say technically in the slang sense, our favorite, quirky, wild, Uncle, Deadpool, Wade Wilson, the Merc with the mouth, the GOAT, will be here not only from all his accolades and skills, the things that he's done, the people he's faced, and the showcasing of great regard, skill, and proficiency, his scaling to this man Wolverine to an extent, very cracked and crazy with his skill and different matter of shit, and Deadpool is a ridiculous force. Now, a lot of things that set him back is not only his personality, him being too much in, a audience talk when he's out here in his fights. He breaks the fourth wall most of the time and isn't considered a great deal of the fight. If you want to stretch that because he breaks the fourth wall, he should be higher. He doesn't really do anything with that. He's not as crazy like in the comics where, he literally can draw something mid comic book and make it happen, or talk to the reader, or literally pull the writer into the book and say, hey, yo, stop making me lose and win. He can't do a lot of the crazy shit that he could do in the comics, and most importantly, doesn't pull a great plethora in it. And again, we're basing it off consistency. So just off of his pit for pit scale, his weaponry, mixed creative craft, and being one very, dummy, splurge of the funny button moves in fighting, I like to say that he could crack, some very crazy moves and maneuvers to best people, and, the healing factors of, people below. He's either being able to showcase the capability to beat, headshots still kill, and decapitation, I think, will still work on X-23 if we want to go off of what's shown. We don't know, again, how really crazy her healing factor by all measurement is, and I just feel like Deadpool's of a greater regard. But Cable here not only can outbest him in a lot of different mixed scenarios, he's been able to beat the shit out of Deadpool in a lot of different pit for pit scenario, and I just feel like Deadpool's of a higher, grander overarching standing than him in some occasions to properly all around say concretely that he's better than. Cable as well, is way more experienced. He's ridiculously, strong, got a lot of creative capabilities in his own right, and you can argue that he can see through a lot of what he's going to do. If we say mixed matter, that, his technology doesn't allow him to have full case proper condition, I think. Because mainly by comparison to the comics, this might be kind of like a mixed mag, kind of thin ice scenario that we have to actually see. But there's a mixed argument by how you utilize technology, how it's set up to be, in mixed comparison to the comics. And again, I'm not saying that she has precognition, but what I'm trying to basically say here is that, yes, There's an argument that it's technology, like in comparison to the comics, again, the kind of adaptation stance, and not very much concrete and credible. And I'm not saying he's more powerful than what he needs to, and I'm not going to be a hypocrite and disregard the case of what I'm talking about with Deadpool in comparison to the comics and the type of like OP shit he could possibly do and the type of like gag character shit. But I'm saying that for his technology, he closed the gap for having advanced technology that allows him to hold from full, like, greater advantage, but allow him to seize greater advantages through very much motion control and movement and kind of be on better, stylistic advantage, and cruiserweight timing could just outbox a lot of people and mix crack with the fact that, again, it doesn't allow him to have full cases like precognition or foresight. It allows him to see a greater, force in the battle than others. So with this greater, presence of, kind of smarts and tech whiz, I could see him cracking out, a lot of people in their defense and winning. And I don't want to say that about the bat, no repetition. I don't really have a better way to really single-handle that form, speaking. But I'm hoping, as I've been doing for the most part, be very coherent, congruent, concise, and fluid. Say that you can make arguments. The mixed form scenario, in the lasting sense, Deadpool could beat him, but he has a lot of ways to possibly kill him. He was beating him most of the fights, and Cable's ridiculous renowned case of matter of fighter and sharpshooter and closer in fights, through his technology would suffice to get him to win all around. So, yeah, that's how I feel. Gambit, though. Ooh, I'm about to make a name for myself. You know how long I've been waiting for this? Our GOAT. Hope that it comes. My question is, what the fuck do rogues see about this nigga, bro? I'm gonna stop. On the road. Gambit, not only in comparison to comics, is able to make anything he wants pretty much energized with exploding, incendiary, and radiation, but is very mixed skill regard person. Showcase speed and relativation to other people. I think a lot of things that he could do can not only be very damaging and crazy from what we've seen him do in the final battle, and is one wild sense of matter of, dog in a fight that could all around slap up a lot of the people against him. And to me, it gives me reasonable grounds and hope of him being one very crispy, sly dude in his fighting, but the main man, the man that's very good at what he does, but what he does is very nice, or Canadian honey badger, I think would seize the win. Now, obviously, this Logan does not scale to the greater scaling of Fox. He is a one-note, random variant of Logan. He hasn't done a lot of the accolades or references anything of super, real insinuation or assertion to make. And, simply by his healing factor, scaling over Deadpool, his K abilities, and the fact that he would be a lot more harder to kill than what Cable can understand, and the fact that, Wolverine has faced a multi-different ridiculous regarded dude and is ridiculously hella crazed, ravaging, record hold of, the most arguably high potent healing factor and possibility, but it's just ridiculously out of the league with mixed stance of, people who are durable, more skilled, and he's a very skilled combatant, facing matter of great skilled people, but he relies a lot on his killer instinct, doesn't really utilize the greater stack, of his skill and experience and shit, but if he had to, he could use that to better credit, move around people, press them in better ways, really put them down. It's greater stack for stack, stand for stand than a lot of people, and I just feel like with his very ridiculous renown for being a living weapon that is very resourceful, is so crazy, with the matter for how he fights, will just dissect and just decimate a lot of them in the grand scope, and anything that they give, he'll give back 1,000 times harder. His healing factor is ridiculously fast, barely feels pain, and is resistant to a lot of credit capabilities, that could be very threatening and hold weight to him. But he either heal back from his healing factor, if we want to go off of mixed counting for what is shown in the case of Fox, even though, yes, he doesn't scale to him, but he's on the same principle, mixed bag his healing factor, he could push through a lot of shit. Now, everyone else is either just too durable, has faced greater shit, and are just on better matter of, scaling chain, and also very much more skilled. So, Luke Cage's brother, Luke Cage himself, Colossus Angel Dust, which is a crazy name. I've joked about it with the lads about how that's like a wild name to even have for her. No respect to the actress and her possible base name being Angel, but Angel Dust being your supervillain name, and you're this. I just don't get the reference there. But yeah, it is what it is. Like again, it would be way too creative, durable, have scale and stand to people of similar regard. A lot of what Wolverine could try to do would not work strongly against them. Unlike others who have way more better mixed matter of scale regard and stood to greater people and have used their different weaponry to hurt people of higher standing, I believe powerfully that none that Wolverine could throw at Luke Cage, Colossus, or anything would actually hurt severely, and they could do a lot of things to him that he couldn't do to them. So yeah, like that right there should just slate them as being way more greater in comparison. And speaking of that, I fucking forgot about Juggernaut. I was gonna reference that they could just do what Juggernaut did to Deadpool. If I had said with Juggernaut, excluding the wank that is comparing him to the comics, because at that point, like, he might solo like half of the fucking list. But if I had to like say where he would be, he'd be so incredibly strong by what he's just done to these people, and just arguably around greater stronger than Colossus. Even though Colossus was able to give him a reasonable great form fight and best him, he has showcased all around the grand scope of the fight to be able to be, stronger than him. So unless you think the skill of Bushmaster, who is here, right, would all around best him, I think there's a lot of reasonable perception to say that he can't really put down the dude in grandstand because the skill is so much greater. But Juggernaut, I don't like saying it because size doesn't always matter, but Juggernaut is a big ass nigga. So I'm not gonna lie, like his size just be maybe a little bit too much. And I think you could stretch him to be like in street level, because then that's when we talk about greater versatility of, tech and hacks, and Drax, should beat him. So if I had to talk about Juggernaut, he might be up in there. I might have to look it over. But, there you go. That's where he would be. So, fuck off. But, yeah, like, simply slates him, of greater standing durability and capabilities there, right? And Andrew, that's what a kill Colossus win for scenario. Granted, Colossus, Hobak is a lot more, pacifistic and nice guy, and he's not a big, brawler and hothead or greater all grandstand fighter, but he is trained, he is of great standing, and he's way more physically stronger in any matter of what, Wolverine could do. And if Deadpool can't even harm him, but Deadpool can harm Wolverine to an extent. I mean, I just don't see where Wolverine could harm him, unless you want to say that his claws bypass durability like in the comics. Again, never proven, never shown, and not very much strong argument in this Wolverine. Because Fox, that's a little bit different. I can maybe agree to that, but this version, no, I don't see it. Elektra Resurrected, though, is of a way greater stand and not just skill, capabilities, has fought and took different blows from a greater Daredevil and Iron Fist. Her different case of not just weaponry, hack, skill, regard will be beyond them. She's been able to harm Luke Cage, meaning that she should be able to harm these greater people. Her skill and assets, have not just, put her on a higher pedestal than all the members of the Hand. She's her ultimate weapon, which makes her more skilled and capable than anyone else. And just general Hand people are able to be a threat to not just Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, and a greater deal with different variety of people to select her as being way, regardless of, wherever you want to mix, try to hail these people to be, just 1,000 times stronger, ridiculously. So, yeah. Then Davos, with his anti-Iron Fist, should just build a bomb people into next week and his ridiculous skill. Danny, with his great skill, right, should be here. Danny holds back. It's something from mixed matter, from greater scaling that he could distribute. And again, you want to know why Danny, different matters being B-rated in people, is still all the way up here. Not only because the Iron Fist usage, his ridiculous, still very much strong skill. The fact is, the context for the reason that he loses, he's either getting jumped, a lot of different poor of context before. He's a very emotional person that has a lot of his emotions holding him back. That is very just weird and flimsy, and it's the most random plot-like convenience and relevance stamp of this dude being so controllable and impulsive and sometimes seeming whiny to pull back on this shit. One of the most biggest problems I have with Iron Fist, especially when you're supposed to be Iron Fist, protector of Kunlun. You have the power of Shao-Lao and the Undying, the Dragon, and you're a grown-ass man. Please, put the fries in the bag or actually put in work, goddammit. But, it is what it is. Iron Fist fan rant over. It's just the fact that, there's a lot of context to put him back in greater standing. But when he's full, decently solid, and full coming into full closure of his emotions, and all greater case scale that he has endurance standing to, and him being, in season 2, for the most part in greater on Grand Slam, going about full fledged coming into, his matter of, elite powers and fighting to the greatest, impeccable stand. I would like to say you should put him properly here, right? Then you have his wifey, who is rocking with a Chi blade, was seen in great regards as the matter of different martial arts strategy and efficiency. Has very, lucrative different martial arts at her disposal, mixed with Chi, allows her to do a lot more creative shit. Her Chi, because of Danny, allowing her to take his place as protector of basically Chinatown in New York. She would be ridiculous, hell, skilled, sense of matter of regard. And then you got this man, Danny, in his flow state, his ultra instinct state, his weave nation, form would allow him to not only be out of the, qualm of anybody's comprehension, but also just be of a way more seasoned, elite, efficient regard, and no one skill-wise, strength-wise should be able to touch him, outdo him, and allow him to be a whole different proficient regard of capable person, where he's just able to dismantle and dominate in the fight around most people, and could just be a whole different, fluctuation of the most high peak stand in hands, that he would just body a lot of them in the grand scope. A lot of people are getting 5-finger looking good, pieced up like no other. Vulture is not only way more of capable form with being able to fly, range, hacks, technology, but could just storm throughout the fight and basically just be that one Vulture-like character from Bakugan and just slap a lot of people up before they could do anything. He was also able to harm a fish out of the water, arguably Homecoming Spider-Man, but reasonably should have some initiation and being all around stronger and better at certain occasions. His durability, what he's been able to do, he's able to cut through a lot of shit that a lot of these people do not have showcasings to, and yeah, like, you should be reasonably on that regard. Plus, he stole like Stark and futuristic tech, and so his tech gets scaled to different qualm of different, mixed matter shit that was seen in Avengers 2012, if you want to stretch, but I think that's fine. This man Falcon and his, original Falcon sense form, aka like Civil War Falcon, or, the Greater Falcons, would be, where he would be here. Skill, expertise, flawless, accuracy and different scale, better wings. He's very crazy in speed and flight. He can react to a lot of crazy different matter of shit, and is a very skilled regard dude. And just would, to me, just John Wick in the sky. A lot of people here and just outdo them. So yeah, they could never even get their hands on him, and he could just, to me, just be able to outdo in so many creative ways. And unless the situation really calls for it, he doesn't really ever have to actually be on the ground with these people. So he would just be a flying character versus like the tanks and Marvel Rivals. As you can tell, I despise this season sometimes, but it is what it is. But we have this shorty from Falcon and Winter Soldier, the terrorist, right? This, Udam hair looking cool, fine shorty. But she's just way severely more stronger. She's scaled to greater versions of characters. And even though there's a lot of context, not wanting to hurt her age, the scenario and one-off shit, her super soldier serum or whatever she has to partake in the matter for why she's so strong, would be so much more greater than them. And I think, trying to come down to her from her speed and scaling to bullets, that she could eventually, not only from speed and other stuff, catch on to Falcon and beat him. And it's also like, again, a lot of what Falcon has, unlike others on here, wouldn't kill her because, again, of durability and capabilities. And we're getting to people just way more durable, way more capable, and just, this mixed scenario stuff. And it's just like speed, because I know like there's some characters here, like he get a good shot, and that is true, but I see more capabilities time or not than beating. There's also like their tech and the speed. Like the speed is what's really the big cracking thing on him, where before he could really set up the shot to kill some of these people, they are to hit him. Be honest, I think they're so much skilled of a person that they could just be relative to any aspect of shooting range that they have. And I believe most of the time they would just get, beaten, what I'm saying, if it came down to like a close quarter scenario, he could get his shot. But I know a lot of these people it's not, and a lot of them are going to ground him and best him. But, moving on. But that kind of like sums up these, like Cyborg dude from Guardians of the Galaxy with the techno head, his better technology range, and Ronan has him as his, chief or captain, so he's of some great regard. He took different mixed matter of blows from other people. He was able to combat Star Lord a little bit, started Guardians of the Galaxy, so there you go. He goes to Guardians of the Galaxy, at least one Peter Quill, and is a very skilled dude. Next, you got Crossbones. He is not only way more durable, was shown in skill, repertoire, and was a very, high held dude in Hydra, and through all of his training, build up in time, showcase decent rock for rock relativation against Cap. He's way more durable. He has a lot of tricks up his sleeve and could just dominate on demolition for people. Ironheart, right now at least, with Wakanda Forever, not only has a full high-tech vibranium suit, has a lot of capabilities to just aerially fuck a lot of these people, and is decently skilled with shit. She was able to take different blows, mix different times. She was able to take blows from Namora, right? But mixed context, was able to boost her off into the water and possibly say defeat her or knock her out, but I would say just put her down for a second. She is a very skilled mixed matter of person, if a record of shit, and was able to catch Namor off guard and stun him for a time, so he could be captured by the ship and then taken to a disadvantage. But I think everyone else either would just be too durable, too skilled, could take her out of the air, have the capabilities to, or simply put, if they would ever get into a ground standing sense, would be able to defeat her. And they also just showcase, relativation to her and others to, I would say, concretely say that yes, a lot of what you're going to throw at them, they could literally just throw back at her, especially if you think like there's a possibility they could like deflect it at her on some Genji shit. So that's why I got, like, as you see top right, I'm going to get especially into this entire tier list, right? Point with hero slash heroine, because I know there's a lot to be, took in and conceived from this, right? But to best suffice to say, I'm going to explain it as always, but there's a lot of big points to be talked about, about especially these two. But as a whole, the entire case of the tier is a better, greater case perceived. But yeah, that's why I put her. But next we have street level, where you have Ghost at the bottom. Now you could argue if Ghost and her Tracer mixed flip-floppy Wraith form is as strong, capable as, the case of her Thunderbolts version. But I would argue that, her in Thunderbolts has more control, more capable use of it, showcase great relativation to others. She did kill Taskmaster, and she's very much a fish in regard Shawty. But Ghost, in general, right, is not only way more crazy hacksy, can move around a lot of different people, and is just very much a skilled, proficient regard of Shawty, a lethal assassin. She does a lot of different Inhuman-like stuff and tears people apart. I'm obviously not going to talk about the Inhumans in case there's anything I almost forgot about that show. This version of Black Bolt is not, the Inhumans version, for anybody wondering about that. But yeah, like, simply put, like, she's just a ridiculous skill form person. Everyone else, though, either she could never actually full harm because they're not normal people. They could outskill and understand it, and she was seen by people who are not that skilled to be reacted to at the end. So I think people who are stronger, more scalable to some higher stuff and experience could beat her. Drax would not only, best her from the fact that he, when he stands still, turns invisible, but just the fact that he's a fucking unit. Like, I know it's not shown a lot because Drax is a goofy goober, but Drax is not only the Destroyer for a reason. Some people be forgetting his name, Drax the Destroyer, but is a very famed regard demon. He was in prison for a reason, is a beast in human skin and multi-high case scale. He would outdo a lot of different mixed matter of peak or superhuman people. He's able to bully a lot of the humans when he went to Earth in that one special. And Drax is just a ridiculous high caliber, dude when it comes down to strength, skill, and other matters of that, and is able to roughhouse a lot of different people. He's able to fucking power bomb Batista as he is, It's been Adam Warlock, and I just see him strifing beyond a lot of what they can do. He's also a good shot, and he's a very, sly killer with them blades, right? I can't wait to see him in Marvel Rivals. But yeah, next we have my man Heimdall, another instant character that could be in Marvel Rivals. I'm probably gonna start with these Mauro Rivals references. Mauro Rivals been on my mind, right? But Heimdall is here not only from his experience, skill, accolades. He arguably has infinite, possibly pool of knowledge with his call for emotions to be tamed, untapped, or unwrapped, being so possibly crazy that he could be higher. But the reason why I don't really see it as being things, I don't know how consistent and or really providing of the best true knowledge to really gauge about the person to beat them. Because not only these people's mixed bag emotions, but I feel like that's a very like whataboutism thing. Okay, you can see into people's emotions and a little bit of their mind, but he doesn't actually have the full endless possible role you know, of the mind to be possibly seen in the moment, like how other forms of arguably what he has precognition is. Like it's kind of weird to explain, but the best concretely to finally say what it is, he has what would be the arguably most consistent interpretation of foresight and presight. We're talking to a person, he can read into him. He's the watchman of the Aesir. He has infinite pool of knowledge. He was trusted by Odin to be his watchman. He's fought alongside Odin, done a bunch of different crazy great A regard things. He's endlessly watching, endlessly hearing, and he has ridiculous, eerie, mythos about him. But his precognition is not to the same crack regard like God of War's precognition. He is very skilled, but his skill is very mixed determined. He is a unit. He is a beast. He did take out those warships in Thor: The Dark World, which is one of the most coolest showcasings in that movie, because, God, that movie is awful. But, he also did survive the Carousel of Winters in Thor 1, when he got shot with the ice cube. He did survive that. So, I mean, there's that. I mean, obviously he got frozen, right? But, like, he was able to survive it and push past it. He did break out, which no one else has ever done. So I guess that's a feat. But everyone else would just be better because of like skill hacks and you got aim, you got durability. It'd just be too much. Like I can see maybe being Shuri, but I think Shuri would be here not only because she was able to put pressure through mixed technology of intricate matter on Killmonger's suit. She has very high brains, wit, skill. She could take a lot of people out of the air. She was able to stand decently to Killmonger and different stuff and not entirely get bodied. She was said to be a very skilled matter of person with the technology of Wakanda than others. And she has a lot of ways to out-hack and best people, and depending on the environment, she could do a lot of crazy shit. As she's basically like Sombra with extra steps. So obviously, depending on the person below, that doesn't really matter. But I think you could argue that she could best a lot of these people, and she's been seeing disregards of scaling by some other people. So there you go. Hawkeye, ridiculously skilled. I know he's underrated. I know he's underlooked, but Hawkeye is still ridiculous. Regard dude. Style is impetuous. Movement is incredible. He's able to react, catch, and do different mixed matter of speed scaling to the most craziest regard of people. He's able to keep up with very high caliber people. And, did crazy shit in his show, other shit. I mean, was reacting to different matter, mixed crazy people, and it's pretty peak, and his skill and matter, shit like that. I just feel like there's a mixed call for him being a very much mixed bag person, because it really only takes, I feel like, a few hits to put him down. But I think he would outrange, outstyle, and just showcase great, recuperation when he really gets on. But you got Teen Groot, and obviously I'm not placing Baby Groot because Baby Groot is omnipotent. But just like we got Teen Groot with Adult Groot, who is possibly interchangeable. The thing is that they're both on the same regard. Adult Groot, right? Or Unc Groot, because it said that this Groot is like the most oldest version of Groot. This is Guardians of the Galaxy 1 Groot, aka Van Diesel Groot. It's crazy that Van Diesel's motion capturing him, right? But just because his nature bending, his durability, the fact it takes a lot to put Groot down, and Groot is just one of the most crazily like crack durable and ridiculously tankish niggas, right? So, his teen version, I put a little bit, in mixed form being down, not only from the fact that Groot, when he's older, will have more experience and understanding, but the fact that he can hurt people of greater mixed standing, and he was said to be the ultimate muscle of the Guardians, and he is physically stronger than a lot of the Guardians. Why I have some of the Guardians over him, obviously, is because of skill, time, but there's also a lot of context and reasoning for why. There's also like hacks, gads, like obvious shit. But him in Infinity War, aka when he was Baby Group, and also in Endgame, right, is only because of the fact that he was scaling besides different mixed matter, different people, but he's obviously not on the same level. And he did try to stop Thanos, and even though Thanos was able to push past his nature bending, depending on the environment, Groot can do a lot of crazy shit. So like, if they were fighting like in a random street, Groot could use the environment around him to do crazy shit. It also took his... I don't know how he died. Like, Val's in the party with me. I don't know if you want to tell me, but correct me if I'm wrong. In Guardians of the Galaxy 1, didn't it take them like to H-bomb this nigga Groot to kill him? Yeah, this nigga ridiculous. Like, no. And he still survived. Like, I know he turned into like a fucking plant at the end of the movie, but that's ridiculous. So... no, and why he's not more higher is because, there's stuff more greater. And obviously, when I say H-bomb, I don't actually mean a fucking H-bomb. Because at that point, then that would be a little bit more ridiculous. But it's the fact of the matter that is a high record of, like, blast. So these guys would have to either wear him down or they could take a greater blast, arguable exert, than what Groot takes in that case of, situation individually. Then you have the main villain from Captain Marvel 1, where he is not only a greater skill regard person and possibly could still outskill Captain Marvel with all her powers, right? Has great tech, realization of shit, has a lot of tech that could fry, melt down, and break down Groot to eventually single out the win. I think if Groot got his hands on him, that might be a different problem, but the fact that he's somewhat of the most, high-class, skilled veteran like Captain America of space would, to me, solidly deem him being there. Whiplash is here not only because of his, tech being able to fry and rip up, race cars, react to race cars. He was able to stand to a off the fly, basically strap randomly pulled out Iron Man suit that wasn't tested, wasn't run, but was able to fry his systems a little bit, stand to him. He still got decked and beat, but he was able to take what he could throw and stand to him. He's said to have a similar matter of potent Iron Man suit-like capabilities to him, and to me, reasonably defines him as being, a reasonably great, caliber person, and not just fighting, but also very, ridiculous, because with his whips, he could really get to slashing and dominating people left and right, and could just, single-handedly fodder and melt and slice and electrocute people. Like, he has a lot of different creative cases, real ways to really, gorge on the idea of breaking people down viscerally, and could full-fledged, throttle, dominate and tear through people's defenses in a lot of ways. But Ironmonger would be higher, not only from the fact that he objectively was out muscling Iron Man 1. Tony was said to be way more powerful, way more durable, was a combination of all the most craziest shit, and is a bulk different regard dude. He has better range than some people, is vastly way more powerful, and, there's an argument that, only that combinated compound nuke blast is really more stronger than Ironmonger, because Ironmonger was the ultimate threat, and it took Tony to take him out of bounds and use different environmental differences to put him down. And his weakness, even though being obvious, being, the thing he could use, he would either be too big or you would need a hell of a lot to take him down. It took like over hundreds of thousands of volts to knock him out. Correct me if I'm wrong, didn't this nigga Obadiah die in Iron Man 1? So, like, you would need a lot to really hurt him. So, yeah, I'm going to be honest, like, that's ridiculous. And I'm going to be honest, like, I don't really see a way for him to build that much up, and I don't even think he actually is carrying that much. Because if he was, that would actually damage greater on Iron Man. So that just proves my point. There also is his, like, obvious chest weakness, but they either couldn't even get close, put him down, or he would be too much. He also could fly, I know he's a slow flyer, but nonetheless, he could just fucking battering ram niggas. So yeah. But then you have Bucky as Winter Soldier, as a higher grade, skilled person, arsenal, capabilities, could find that weakness, in the matter for the chest and actually hit him. He could skill to everything that he has to throw at him. And I believe because of what the Winter Soldier was able to do to Iron Man's more advanced suit, he would just body and push past. Now you have Bucky here, right, of now, who's very skilled, very much a great regard, case of matter, fighter and pair for pair, tactical, mind. Scales to different great regards, to different matter, people. Is very, like I said, a, tick for tack, bang for bang, very skilled record person, and is without a doubt one of the most ridiculously high fame, killers and resourceful people like no other, and has pushed past a lot what the Winter Soldier has shown. Just had to degree of the case, people took some blows from Sentry, and he's just very much there. He's with the shits, and he's very creative, in the fight to very decisively bong out and push through people. So yeah, then you have Winter Soldier, higher class soldier dude, right? Where this guy was said to be, one of the most, like revered and higher grand scale soldier than others. He was said to be greater than the versions of Cap. And this dude before, he stood to the test of time in actual hidden records as being one of the most efficient, resourceful, commendable, and high-class soldiers of the super soldier serum, and has a lot of statements, and it can be out of like a respect factor, but reasonably to me stands as being a guy that you could deliver as being, a guy in his prime, because now obviously in his old state, right, that is so out of the ballpark for a lot of people because of this skill, because of different regards, and because of these statements to be taken at face value, to say, unless they're actually good overarching skills that have been way beyond his comprehension, a bunch of context for them, to arguably say that he could be just of a higher grandstand form than these people, I can't see the argument that because he actually doesn't have any deliberate feats or statements that are very much concrete of anything, you can't say that he shouldn't be here. And I can misunderstand that. But the fact that his statements and how he's seen and put in decent regard by not just Bucky, Sam, and the records, and these records having no reason to lie, they should all be objective and in-depth analysis of like what he is, right? That reasonably should put him by the analyzation on a different crunch, stand of power than any of these other people. And also in accolades and skill factor, but it's a higher crack fiend, resort, and would just be on a different, pillar of, not just hands, but also proficiency and expertise on a ridiculous regard. So yeah, like to me that props him to being sufficiently there. Next we have hero/heroine, where, get some water. You have the case of Corvus Glaive, where he was able to penetrate through the hide of Vision, but context at him, was able to scale to a great different mixed matter of people, was able to do great decent deal when he was injured, was putting in work when he was injured, and he only got injured, enough injuries, when he was off guard, and even in that critical state was very good and showed great skill and motto. He is way beyond a lot of these people's comprehension, and unless you actually have demonstration for your own capabilities and greater scaling at hand and makes other shit to be said, can't actually best this version. So to me, yeah, this man is way beyond the qualm of most different forms of superheroes and or possible villains, just from that greater expertise and not just skill, capability, his style being way more like cut and dry than some other mixed matter people, where he just kind of flings around a lot. But the fact that he's one of the children of Thanos in the matter for title sense makes him way more perplexively proficient, and it's also like just the AP like he's able to literally just HF spear for a lot of people. So a lot of time he might one hit half of a lot of these niggas below. So yeah, Steve is here not only from being able to outskill and outmaneuver this guy. He has a vibranium shell still to take his blows. He was seen to be able to outduke and body him at his peakest regard, which would be, base to end game, right? He was just one of the most elite, suffice to say, creative, on the shields movement. His, shield breaking physics will allow him to do a lot of different crazy mixed matter of shit. And when he really gets on with his, high fly, booming wild shit, and being on his Tron Legacy shit, and popping his shit like a boomerang, frisbee, I think he would close out a gap and all around define, the biggest means of, what it means to be that dog in him. I could do this all day and just perfect against a lot of people, and his skill is high class. But then we have, Peggy Carter, or this Carter, how you say her name, is Peggy, right? Peggy Carter. Within the live action, aka the Illuminati one, right? Being mixed different version and not the what if version, because the what if does a lot more horror than most craziest shit, right? That kind of gets me feeling that she should be of greater regard. Granted, everybody in Thunderbolts was getting cooked by Wanda, regardless of arguably them being wasted in showcasing and being entirely degraded versions of what not just comic book but also what was mixed bag, shown before with them. But I would argue and stand by the fact that this Shawty Peggy Carter, from everything that's known about her and being said of being a greater version of Cap and a lot of different mixed other matter, is just beyond what this man can do, and his mixed bag more skilled. You could argue, I feel like for the live action version, maybe being below, maybe being not, but I think by all different stands, should be more, and also Peggy Carter and What If should easily be more, not only because her writing is goofy, hilariously wild, but even looking consistently, I feel like it's the most more craziest form person with skill, bravado, capability, and just being a higher grade creative, stand. There's versions where she has competed with Cap and done more, and just would be a more, insane rival to fight, pair for pair. John Walker is up here, though, not only from what he has said to be in a physical human regard and her capabilities of that sort, but the fact of all his training, expertise, and capabilities in comparison to others and what he's been able to do, what he's done in Thunderbolts, and his scale for scale stand, and the fact that he was, to me, the most skilled, most physically strong, and capable. It's been talked about to death that John Walker is stronger than Captain America now, and his capabilities and showcasings. And I feel like he's just all around in a greater league of capabilities and speed, scale, skill to mix matter than him. Don't get it twisted. Captain America's skill, I do think, is all around greater, but his stand of skill is as much, I feel like, to a strong, decent, base to base, hand for hands being thrown on reasonable same regard, and it's way more wildly informed, in boast and scaling and stand for stand that, he would beat him. But I think Natasha, Black Widow, at her peak, is better, not just from all the scaling beforehand, but the type of scaling that she's done with being relative to Corvus Glaive's wifey as well, scaling decent mixed matter to Okoye, and her hacks, capabilities, other forms of that, I think would strongly record for her to be way beyond, the capabilities of, all the dudes and people below. Her skill is still insanely built different, and, she just got a lot of ways to outdo and sweep people under, and I think all around in fighting, just comparatively, is so ridiculously reaction crazy and dummy wild that she would be able to strive beyond any actual accolade, like, for greater strength and hacks, that I would say that she could use a lot of that under, the table against them, right? And before they know it, get pieced up. I think she could sweep people on her back, put people down in a lot of different crazy mixed matter of ways. Use a lot for tech, from electricity, smoke bombs, guns, mixed matter of sense, and just be so much more high class veteran with her skill and standing that she could strongly, in every creative, reasonable way, be beyond them. And again, using a lot of what they can do, a different adaptive, adept form of different high peak regard degree of fighting, just dominate and full, push through a lot of what they can throw at her. And yeah, like to me, just being ridiculously absurd comparatively in a lot of occasions. And yeah, like they're just ridiculous in a lot of forms. And that's the big thing. Like they're just entirely built different. And they clash for clash, hang for hang, bang for bang regard. And yeah, like I just feel like with what she's faced, she's on a whole better standing than them. To me, then again, I'm gonna know statistics, and I'm kind of on a big kind of tangent here that maybe possibly nigga would be out here too crazy for them, sweep people on their feet, sweep people under, their nose, and just get full on, Eagle with it, Assassin's Creed with it, and just be. I feel like Black Widow is that gal. You know what I'm saying? Like no respect, because the scaling speaks for itself. But then Blade is a whole different matter of animal. Blade is stylistically one wild cat pulled straight out of Street Fighter. That man is going ballistic, ravaging. Tech is crazy, built different. Motherfuckers always trying to skate off hill. There'll only be one Blade. I'll never drop him off of rivals though. It is what it is. Blade is one sick ass nigga. From his tech, from his skill, from his ferocity, from his fury. He's rocked with Dracula. He's facing mortal beings. And I didn't put some in a different matter of Blade characters here because matter being too much, not being the most concrete scaled, and there's kind of a little bit too flimsy mixed matter stand-up scaling. The fact is that Blade takes a lot of it. It's also like there's a mixed argument of just Blade only being shown and not being a character that is not came into canonicity and taking more. This Blade is reasonably from those places, and you can't consider the others, but those movies don't come as full slate canon, and we don't actually see the greater displays, except for the actual mention of them being more, and then using the continuity and the context. Blade doesn't reference those movies. Blade is just Blade, nigga. Like that's it. That's all you gotta know. But like just using all the scaling in the movies have been required, by a lot of showcasings to either mix hold back or not full go out if he wanted to, because of the fact that not only ratings tie as well the fact of him trying to control the insatiable thirst, but if he taps into it, can be a ridiculous demon, and is one undoubtedly sick ass nigga wicked when he gets on. I think the only thing putting him back though is not only not having as much superior tech, but the ways of his fighting being outclassed by way greater regard skilled people. There's the durability, and there's just like a bunch of things to be taken into play. Okoye, the biggest representation of that. Okoye is not only the general of the Dermalage, is said to be one of the most skill regard people, was put in high standing of skill by other people, could outdo a lot of the other mixed meta of people, and is said to be way skilleder than Bucky and other people. Skilleder? I don't think that's a word. I think I possibly said that here and there and just catching myself. It just kind of sounds weird. You guys know what the fuck I'm saying, right? We've been at it for a minute. Way more high grandstand skilled and capable than a lot of others to me, reasonably prop this person and others on a greater merit than others in comparison. To me, that gives the reasonable, concrete standing of being way beyond, could outdo and just so much more in a grand scope fight. Just to me, from her having greater scaling and greater, durability taken in, size up, piece up, and deliver more killing configuration, some wild mixed moves of, her skill and tech as well, could allow her to not only stun people, disorient people. She's very skilled with that spear. Was able to outdo a bunch of different Talokani warriors. Was able to give somewhat of a decent mixed sense of fight, and was able to arguably harm Atuma, even if it wasn't too much. Is in again high regard, and again with all these different crack of different different maneuvers and the fight. I think a lot of these different, ways of fighting that allow her to maneuver and crack out different greater case of, movers in the fight, if that makes sense as a slang, as, she's just very fast and adept person with the spear. She'd be cracking, people with that mug, and though to be splitting edge, sly and efficient, that she would win. And just from everything I said, the configuration, different moves with her spears, and different tangle with people, being able to fight Killmonger to an extent, being put in high mixed regards by the record of, this shawty, to her left, this man, T'Challa's wifey, who we're going to talk about why she reasonably should be higher, but as well T'Challa himself. Sure, I mean, she is one crazy, built different general. And so, with all that being said, to me, all reasonable regard, without a shadow of a doubt, I think reasonably stands pretty high tier peak skill person than a lot of the rest of them. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But why Child's wife, I forgot her name, beautiful dancing actress, good for a lot of women in MCU, very beautiful woman, right? Shawty is not only crazy in her skill and movement, but as well has tie of a lot of different crazy matter of, fighting skill and shit, right? And was said by T'Challa to be the greatest warrior, greatest person, an elite assassin, knows how to fight better than most different other mixed matter of people, is very crazily skilled and capable, is able to outdo and box different mixed matter of people of, the Wakabi, able to best different other mixed matter of niggas in the case for, the fight with Wakanda, is very skilled and high class, and is one undoubtedly impeccable fierce shawty with, skill, very much scissor cutter, and she has showed combat, prowess of regard, was able to kill and take out a lot of different mixed Talokani, putting a lot of work against them, be very efficient in different mixed matter of regards, and to me, showcase herself to be one insane fighter. And because of all those statements and showcasings and doing a little bit more against those people than what, someone like, in this case, Okoye could do, to me constitutes reasonable stance that she would be about relative to arguably greater because of that. Again, mixed debatable fight. You could argue on who's overarchingly better through statements or, actual feats. And you could say that goes to Okoye, and the statements give better mixed merit on her. But to me, I think they're actually pretty consistent with good showcasings to feats and reasonable claim to say that they're there. And not just with Okoye, configuring different mixed, unique creative, crack fiend moves with the spear, with electricity, the beads. She has all that too, with arguably more superior and efficient weaponry. So I can figure that shit and really get on greater movers with it. You know what I'm saying? I would like to say that she can decisively beat them. But the other people are not only way more strong, durable, mixed matter, different creative, skilled, and beyond a hyper greater movers type of movement, greater skill set and efficiency. Sorry, as a stretch. Would say creatively, in the sense of like a lot of different occasionally, to say that they were so much more out of the league of them that in hand-to-hand combat, base-wise, could never even hold a candle, could never even stand to the same regards. So, yeah, when we talk about Namora and Atuma, first of all, they're both people in high regard, not just from a military regard, but in standing to Namor. Atuma has the title of being directly the general of Talokan. Namora is Namor's second-hand woman. She's put in high, praise and has been a very great form of ally and assistant to Namor. Has her in great standing to be there right next to him a lot of the time. Believes in her support on a lot of different occasions. And to be fair, is because of their a lot more, mixed bag, intimate, personal relationship, not like sexual, romantic. Even though, unlike in comparison to the comics, it doesn't seem like there would be relationship between Namor and Namora, because Namora is actually one of his relationships, aka mainline love interest. And I love how Namora is only into like these blonde shorties in the comics, Namora, Emma Frost, and you got Susan Storm. Like my man got a fucking, disease that's worse than chronic bitch dependency. He is in love and entangled into the fucking system of Snow Bunny mind control like no other. Like, I'm playing around, but I just think that's very funny. The more is hyper, fantasized and idealized the case of all these Snow Bunny busky things, you know what I'm saying? But besides that, like, on a real, I wouldn't be surprised, kind of mixed, assertion that Namora might have, greater feelings about Namor in comparison, but Namor being on this god pedestal, sees everybody like his children and is unk to everybody, right? The elder Akukukan, that probably would never happen. But we're getting sidetracked. I don't want to divert from the actual talk of the scaling. But simply put, like, Namora, because of those statements, because of what she's shown, her skill, efficiency, and other mixed regards, and the fact that Namora would not only showcase greater capabilities than, some different matter of different Wakandan warriors, was able to harm and put some work on Ironheart. And if it wasn't for, the aerial situation and the fact that Ironheart, mixed bag, was not in a even scenario to move around to the best regard, because she did go to the sky, right, and took her off. There's a record that Namora could have had better way to kill her, as she was attached to this flying being that she never fought before. So if it came down to a pit for pit scenario, and just in the grand scope, I don't really see her beating her, even if you want to say using that, blue Voltron ass cannon. I like to say that she can never put Namora down for a long run, and don't really see her losing, because she has actually, ways to keep going, while I see her outlasting Ironheart in a hypothetical scenario, but it also goes with everyone else, right? She has a healing factor, a lot more durable, possibly bulletproof with her armor, as a lot of what she's wearing is not just, drip and ice, because they do get that shit on, but it's mixed credit of, being, different formal warrior attire. So this, like, vest fit, like, bra, like, breastplate shit that she got would be reasonably counted to be made out of vibranium, like how, like, I'm not saying this hammerhead shark helm is made out of vibranium. It'd be crazy if it was, like, ridiculous ornate design, but this chain and different garments, different shoulder pad, all that shit, it's vibranium. So she's ridiculously durable as well. There's the fact that she's as just well durable with her skin, and obviously because of Namora's placement of her and what she does, I like to say that she's very much skilled. But, even if we want to consider her to be a general to the same degree as Atuma, I would say she's more commander role, because being second command to the king. But Atuma is effectively the general, and he's above not only because he beat Okoye base to base, being way more stronger than her, taking what she could give and heal from it easily. He was able to push past her. He's very fucking physically strong. He's objectively a powerhouse. He was able to make Okoye's right arm start doing gang signs on the ground. He was able to easily outbest her and could have killed her if he wanted to, if he didn't want a full fight. Atuma is very arrogant. It makes kind of dumbass, if you want to stretch, where he's so persistent on having a glorious record fight. He's very much, trying to joust for blood and hail to the call of gaining a very much greater grandstand worthy fight and kill them where they stand if needed to, right? But he might play around with them and be a little bit too cocky and arrogant and set him up for bad. But I think most of the time, this pit for pit, bang for bangs, because everyone at least below has no argument for being able to kill him, except for maybe Namora. But I think his skill is so much more efficient and grandstand greater. The fact that he's scaled to a greater degree of shit, and with that skill to be taken into play, with his regeneration capabilities, his strength, he's very physically strong, and just the way he fights, I think would just build a slugfest through people. He also beat Okoye in a very well shot and done fight scene. But the fact that Atuma is not only so unorthodox with his axe bardiche, that he was able to use his left hand instead of his dominant hand and outwork and box Okoye. So the fact that Okoye could not be the man that was beating her with not his dominant hand, that sounds entirely terrible, but with the context presented, That's bad. That's bad. That's an L. So a cool, placement like this, I feel like is reasonable. But then you got the wife of Corvus Glaive, who is, on the third like stand of the skill set of like Nebula and Gamora, and to me gives reasonable credit of being, beyond what all these other people are. Not only because she's way more durable in a one-on-one fight, she was outboxing and besting. And if it wasn't for a 2v2 a mixed situational scenario, she would have not lost. And this showcased to be all around a lot more formidable credit of Shawty than them, and could just simply outstrike and down these people before they can really do anything of greater regard. So yeah, like to me, set in stone. She's just way more impeccable than them. But then you have the Nightwing Angel Okoye, who not only has superior spear, superior speed, flight, great form of agility and capabilities, is able to outmaneuver Atuma in every sense of the regard, and was able to, easily best Atuma in the fight in the grandstand. And to me, just is a way better, form of fighter. And I think with this superior stuff, with his great capabilities and a lot more upgraded, advanced vibranium suit, I would like to say that, she would win. She would be able to win. I could see some arguments if you want to say that the skill factor and the arguable strength gap is a lot more wide than what it was kind of mixed bag shown consistently. You could say something, but even then, just looking consistently, I just think that's reasonable because Namora and Atuma would give her a better fight because they're basically on the same level. I just don't think that they can all around beat her, and I also just feel like she, unlike them, is a lot more straightforward with killing, and I just think that, like Juggernaut, not to the same degree, this is a stallion. This is a big-ass woman. So I'm just saying that might be a little bit too much for them, right? Because she basically makes Okoye and Black Widow look small. She would, literally tower over a lot of the people here. So, yeah. Nebula, as your mixed skill regard, regeneration, hacks, technology, and different accessories and weaponry to be used. She was second to Gamora a lot of time, as skill to Gamora a lot of time, right? Gamora is very cool, creative, shawty, and Gamora, and her have been trained since a very young age to be the most ultimate killing weapons. Katana versus Melina level of characterization, and they have been on the same cuffs of skill and creative accolades back to back, and are very much relative. Gamora is higher, even if you want to argue about Gamora and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 not being the same Gamora. Her scaling, skill, and memories, and at least fighting prowess is still the same, and she's shown to be on a way higher regards of skill and craft and fighting stance than them. To me, to really slate her in at a very decisive scale of just skill, prowess, and other accolades being way more higher credit. She has scaled to greater regard people. Thanos puts her as his ultimate greatest weapon. The most skilled person out of anybody that he's had. You can't say it's biased because it is his daughter, and he did love Gamora, but his stance in doing shit was very much, real and culling of the strong, and taking out the weak was a big foundation for this shit. And Gamora was like no other in the status of, scale and stance, and was able to outskill a lot of different creative people, and was able to, make this man Peter Quill look like a twerp. So yeah, I would like to say that she reasonably should be a greater matter of skill and capabilities than that. But then you have Tom Holland, Spider-Man, of the most arguably hyped up moment in any MCU film, with seeing Spider-Man be introduced into the case of the MCU. But Tom Holland, Spider-Man, of Captain America: Civil War to Homecoming, to mix different stretch out things, should reason be here. He was able to not only best a lot of different matter of people, scale to a lot of different matter of people, defeated Vulture, very cracked and hacksy, got a great deal of tech at his disposal, and is very crazy when it comes down to his greater stuff, and did stop a hammer, come down by Cole Obsidian. And I do believe, especially this version of Tom in greater form after all this stuff, is a lot more there. But I think it's mainly the fact that he's very mixed in experience, holds back, doesn't have a lot of the greater capabilities that he has when he gets up there. And just to me, is not very much really on that same degree of level, and doesn't really stand to the same regard. And to me, there's a lot of things that give him reasonable accolade to be here from the people he stood against, from the people he's bested. And in the long run, if it wasn't for the situations to come, I see my man Tom being able to best all around, everybody here in the M and, cocoon them, immobilize them, kill them if you really wanted to. But yeah. But Groot of Guardians of the Galaxy 3 would not just be way too bonkersly powerful. Fuck. I forgot where to put Giant Groot, bro. Like, there's so many characters. I forgot where to put him. Giant Groot would be just under Abomination. I'll explain that, but damn. Because I had him in mind. He was another person I was going to put, bro. Fuck. Again, long ass shit, bro. And the fact that a man, God got mixed distracted in different form. Because the nigga was there before. Because I had it in matter, this tier list set up with all these different mixed matter of people. But still, whatever the case, bro. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 Groot not only has Groot of a stronger regard, scales to higher, greater stuff, took in through explosions that other characters get pushed back from and get, took in almost down from, and he's able to stand greater. He has seeming better, usage of his, nature bending, and again, depending on the environment, with all the scaling to be considered, I think is a good deal, ridiculously out of the bounds and capability to be taken out by a lot of these people. And, you can say it's a very hard case thing for them to even take out Groot before, but a lot of the things that I said about the people in the same tier as him, they could do and push past. I believe that every way Groot is going to dominate, fodderate, and fool just clap the cheeks of a lot of the case of these people. And I don't see a lot of ways how they could kill him. And even if you want to talk about possible decapitation, it really would take you needing to seeming to entirely annihilate Groot on multiple forms to take him out, because he can regrow his head or reattach his head realistically. He's able to reattach a limb to different stuff, and I think he's had his head almost cleaved off and it still be attached, and he arguably scales to way more stronger physical people than these people. So if he ever got into a muscle match with these people, he would be so vastly stronger that he would just dramatically toss people aside and basically start making motherfuckers look like chew toys. But speaking of chew toys, we have Cosmo here. Cosmo's gravity, mixed manipulation, and telekinesis mental powers is ridiculously strong. The reason why she's not of high regard because of this is not only because the people above are way more stronger and could just outrange rock, paper, scissors kill her, but it's the fact that depending on how you perceive the mental fortitude and capabilities of these people, like Yondu and his successor, would just be way too much more stronger. And it's just the fact that, with everything that Cosmo can do with all these mental fortitude, she does have a limit, and she doesn't demonstrate the ridiculous regards of capabilities and power that these other people do, that I think she would just be able to push aside, manipulate the body, be thousands of times way beyond the comprehension of most people, and if he really got pushed to it, could put down a lot of the, ways that these people could fight from their weapons, break them, destroy them, crush them, use them on them, and just be a lot more creatively, much of an assault. But everyone else above would either just be too strong, too high class with them, or arguably outspeed her in perception. And I just feel like a lot of what she can do can never really work on them if we go by the durability stance and, again, speed. So that's kind of where she's at. Granted, there might be a level of, she doesn't really have the greatest thing, demonstration of that scaling that I'm kind of presenting her with. But, again, it's by the fact that she is said to be and, shown to be a heavy hitter of the Guardians of the Galaxy. So, yeah, I like to say that that's where she's at. Then you have Abomination, who will be over Giant Groot, not only because Giant Groot gets way vastly more stronger, he's seeing him way more stronger, hell, grade A light, and it's the fact that Groot, at that point, because of a lot of changes in the Guardians of the Galaxy, is a lot more hail slap, as the top dog, Big Brock of the team, and the fact that Groot is one hell of a regard of big behemoth and high ale, capabilities to possibly have with his strength, his nature bending. I mean, he's built like, I forgot his name, but what's his name? Aganos from Killer Instinct. Yeah, he's built like a fucking brawlic tank, bro. Built like fucking nature fucking Broly. Like he personified tank, titan, and grade A, levels of kaiju stature just alone by standing. So yeah. Abomination though scales to an Incredible Hulk of 2008, right? He's ridiculously powerful, is unhinged, vandal, goon for violence. So he would do a lot more sick tactics than others, and I think could just tear a lot of people to shreds. Would be way too strong, would be way too high craze and booming wild, and was able to take a lot of hits from the Hulk with him more and more over time, becoming more angry and giving it back. His mixed matter of different showings of being very visceral and vile, form shit would be crazy. And to me, he's just a fucking roided up compound V, volatile from Dying Light, where he is supremely way out of the boast of a lot of people's comprehension. And I feel like a lot of things that people try to do against him, he would either be able to break through, tear apart, tear niggas to shreds, flatline them, stomp them, and a great deal, right? Stomp them to the point where there would be no way to actually try to push beyond to grandstand fight him. And any tactics that could be used from the environment and crack as well, trying to immobilize him. Again, he would just break through and best, and I see him getting the hands on any of the people below or below him in Pacific and be able to just to break apart and smear into the ground and make them look like sloppy joes, blue paste, technological waste, or entirely make them look like grovel dirt. Lizard is above from his mixed scaling to amazing Spider-Man, and Tom, even with broken bones and his intelligence, his skill, mixed matter in different scenarios, the scaling presented and mixed assertion and shit, and the fact that the Lizard is one capable, ridiculous Vato. He's a little bit more agile than him, and I think depending on the environment, he would do a lot more. I do think the Abomination got like solid like hits on him, and they went into a whole clash for clash, fight for fight, and wasn't playing cat and mouse and wearing another person down and playing around their stuff, and the Lizard breaking him down slowly and basically playing like Sabretooth against a fucking woolly mammoth of like 10,000 BCE. He would be able to catch him lacking, gouge out his throat, claw at him, and stream out, his greater deal of blood and really work on him. And it's just shown that if you open up the Abomination, he all around gets cooked. And I see the Lizard being able to do that because if he's able to do it to stronger versions of Spider-Man, I believe that he could do it to Abomination. Now, Rocket is here from his technology, his wit, his battle IQ, his technology, and all the versatility he has. He has weapons that, have been acclaimed to be able to bust up in moons. Not very consistent or actually shown, but very capable, ridiculous form of, fighter and combatant, and has all the rationale for being a ridiculously powerful and out of this world type of case of fighter. So, yeah. Then you have Yondu's successor. He uses the bow. Makes matter of, style a little bit more heavy, where he uses shit in direct eye contact maneuver and doesn't do it in the sense of like kind of like mentally, always in tie with it. He's not a skill with it, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So when he uses the arrow and does his whistling, he's very capable, but he's not on the same stand as Yondu, who was a master of his craft. And I know a lot of people might say for both of them, but mainly extremely Yondu, that Yondu should be higher because of how crazy the arrow is and the speed. But first of all, the arrow only goes for specific warranting of scale. Two, a lot of these people are faster, way more durable, and they can catch the arrow and break it, by all account. And I feel like a lot of y'all just be wanking Yondu because Yondu is very much crazy with his matter of, moves with the arrow. And I think a lot of y'all niggas will also try to like fucking glaze this nigga 1 second, but then disregard the reasonable credence for why he's where he is. Listen, he would body a lot of people and a lot of villains of the MCU, but these people either got greater aerial capabilities, way more faster, and way more what. And his durability, even though not entirely being shit, is not that high. So I would argue that he most likely is going to get pieced up before he really does more to these people. Don't get it twisted. I think his superior arrow skills will allow him to defeat these people, and depending on the environment, he'll be out of the range or out of the sight of these people to where I believe that he'll be able to kill them, right? Most times than not. But against these people, I see them winning most of the time for all the reasons I said. Like Ronan in base is way physically stronger, way more powerful, way more to be matched. Ronan is a dog. He has great skill. He's able to humiliate Drax and par for par, bang for bang, would just outmuscle almost every other Guardian, right? And I think is stronger than almost every other Guardian of most different regard because of that. And was said to be one high, powerful dude, and was able to outmuscle and be way stronger than other versions of characters. Yes, in the past, but pretty high tier. The Mandarin, though, can melt through multiple different suits, multiple different record, different regards, different accessories and shit like that, and it's just a lot more powerful than a lot of other people. MODOK with his, technology, arguably a lot more durable, denser body because of the quantum realm would be there. There's also just the fact that, because of the fact that he was in the kind of most stupidest way, because Quantum Mania's writing is absolutely a two-pack of ass. He was able to pull in different, energy source and reaction was very combustive, so like he could pull a lot of crazy like mixed matter of hacks and capabilities, and does have some sense of high sense, like intelligence, and the severity of that is a mixed matter thing. But I feel like it's a sensible stance to say that he's beyond most qualm and grasp of some of these people to where he could just crack down on people's defense and other shit, and aerial combat would decisively body a lot of them. And he also has like mixed telekinesis, electrokinesis case shit, and just a body. But then other people, again, more durable. You have this man Whiplash with his superior suit, aka this Iron Man, or big Ironmonger like class of suit. He would be able to electrically fly, around people with different means of like attaching to people or attaching to things and being around them, alone would to me be a little bit too much of a hulking figure, because he is pretty damn big himself. Not as big as like Ironmonger or some other niggas below, but I'm just saying like he's a big dog. He's built like a Titanfall fucking Titan, right? His electrical whips have a higher current, way more durable, way more capable. He would be able to slash and wreak havoc, with his mix-up twirl winding, whips. He would be able to Amadeus a lot of people. He was bullying a Mark II Iron Man. He was bullying a War Machine, right? He's very capable, and it took a combined effort of a crazy explosion to take him out. He's ridiculously skilled in mixed matter of shit, and he can't fly himself without just tangling. I just feel like he get a hold of somebody, whip around and strike down a lot of his shit, or absorb or react to better height. I think MODOK, if you wanted to say, could stretch greater, use mixed matter, different greater tools to put him down, you could say. But I think MODOK, because of his cockiness, intelligence still being very high, but not using it to the best regards, would give him, Whiplash the win. But I also just think these people are a little bit way too durable, a little bit way too fast, and just if they were offered a chance to greater fight him and wasn't off guard or taking away mixed this stupid dump of writing into play, I would say reasonably, by all reasonable credit, should beat him. So yeah, like that's just how I see it. The new Goblin, right, Harry Osborn, Green Goblin's son, would not only be able to catch up and stand to a kind of out of his normal field fighting, and as well kind of holding back, caught off guard, this man Peter, but as well later on, even though it was with the black suit, did stand somewhat decent relative, pin for pin, bang for bang, ball for ball, in relativation and skill. He has a big thick ass fucking katana. He got fucking pumpkin bombs. He got, I would argue, even a faster glider, it seems like. Very crazy maneuvers and hacks. Pumpkin batarangs. Got all these stylistically crazy shit. He got fucking, fire breathing out from his board. He's very fast, very agile, superhumanly strong. And again, scaled to, again, out of, nowhere mindset Peter, a hailing, to a great deal stronger Peter, because Spider-Man 3 Peter, right? And with that being said, like I said, he obviously fought a Peter that was not, ready. He caught him off guard, accounting of also the fact that he fought a Peter that was holding back, willing to fight his friend, but it as well stand to a going all out symbiote Peter. So with all that being said, he also like technically defeated Sandman at a time. I obviously have Sandman a lot more high for multiple reasons. But like I'm just saying, like he's very crazy. But Willem Dafoe, the Menace, give me that drip or drown, Spider-Man. You know, the Menace, Green Air Force energy is not only way superior in strength. He knows more about the Goblin shit. He has just as much shit, arguably more. His glider is a lot more brutal. I think he has a lot more like versatility and artillery. Got like rockets, all that shit. His bombs can do a lot more, depending how you perceive it. I think you could argue New Goblin's a little bit more durable, but with the greater scaling and tie and stance, I think Green Goblin is just of a greater overarching superiority, and I think he would push past him. I think the only argument you could give is that, like Harry took a head kick, because there's not anything providing this, right? I've heard this be said, but I don't really think it's concrete. A stronger dose of it, and no, I don't see how what he is different. Like the argument is that like this man Willem Dafoe got his shit syringed into him while Harry took gas. So you could argue he's stronger because of that logic. And I'm not gonna lie, now thinking about it, I understand it, but without actually being like, you know, truly like said and confirmated, I don't really think that's sensible. There's an argument he fought a stronger, greater Peter, but there's a mixed context again with the fact that he fought a holding back, out of nowhere mindset Peter, where he wasn't full ready stand stall, wasn't full going all out, wasn't really popping off, and he wasn't doing anything against Harry to the most ridiculous regard, and didn't plan to do what he did against Harry, and all around does bully and beat a lot of the time Harry, and a lot of the things that Harry can do, Peter is kind of laughing off, while at least Green Goblin was actually putting the beats on Peter and Tom, and I don't really see New Goblin standing to that. Again, I think it would be not only an interesting fight and contentious, but no, I think Green Goblin decisively beats his own son, probably brutally, because he's a menace, as the tier suggests. But yeah, Elite, we have Homecoming, kind of out from the form of showcasing Spider-Man with the case of the record of Iron Spider suit, but full shown in greater form, as Homecoming obviously does not take place after Infinity War in comparison. But we have obviously Iron Spider, Tom Holland Spider-Man in the case for all the different showcase that he's had. So how he was even able to best Doc Ock was for Sunday. He didn't know Doc Ock would have killed this man Tom if it wasn't for the nail machine shit. There's no reason to say he's holding back. Tom is very efficient and crazy when it comes down to his shit, but a lot of his killer mechanisms and capabilities, right, I don't think would actually be able to push past the type of not just skill capabilities of this man Doc Ock, but just make him entirely way out of the zone for this man, to face. And with all that being said, just make him effortlessly multiple times over, just way out of his league of comprehension, and just to me make him ridiculously way out of the comprehension to where Doc Ock could not only break down Iron Spider, break down his suit and do all this stuff. Tom reasonably should best everybody below from not only having superiority, be able to take some blows from Thanos, do more, best people in the grand scope, and I just feel like with the kind of conflicting surprise and kind of mixed fish out of water context and broken bones and other shit that you could argue all day that Tom could be lower, it still be higher. But I think this is a very proud case thing, especially because if he really wants to get on, his hacks and all different versatility allow him to be a lot more hyperly aggressive, crazed, sporadic, and really go full crackhead spider on niggas. But then Mysterio's here not only from his illusions and crafty hacks and versatility, being able to disorientate, override, overrun, and just plague people with too much scale, the most ridiculous hail and height of, buffoonery. But the fact that a lot of his tech would still work by the logic presented, so he could eventually kill people and then take people to ridiculous abyss of ever ending, possibly eventually shit. In one hand, that might show what he is, but a lot of people at face value would not know what to do with this dude. They either would not be able to counter, or simply put, they don't got like spider sense, or if they do, like Tom, his spider sense capabilities would not be of the same ridiculous regard as Mysterio. And Mysterio, with all the case of the illusions, hacks, capabilities, and scenarios to be given, would be not only just ridiculously ruthless, but as well would be, yes, possibly greater ever ending, but never actually unyielding. So he would just be duking niggas left and right. And I just believed, again, with the scaling considerated and how people compare Mysterio with some people, and I do know that Mysterio is a very like mixed form person. A lot of people could not best this, and a lot of people's mixed will and other shit would not work. And I just believe that with the context given, with the scale provided, there's a lot of arguments that Mysterio just pushes through a lot of what people have and just would eventually find a way to kill them and take them out in the grand scope. And, he would just be a little bit too much for a lot of people, and everyone else above would not only either be too durable, would eventually find a way, would destroy a lot of what he has to offer. He could not, I would argue, exploit easily, because a lot of these people mentally would just kind of be a little bit too, like, creative, like, negging on just strength and wild proportions. Mind hacks or illusions would be little puny games, and I'm gonna be honest, I just think that he's a very rock paper scissors thing. On one hand, if he gets an opening, a lot of them, they might die, but it didn't work, and he's a lot more susceptible to shit. And also, if Mysterio, like actual mainline Mysterio, gets hit, he's getting fucked. I mean, he's a normal guy for all we know, and yeah, like, he's just not at all a greater overall can stand in capability. So yeah, he would get instantly put down the grandstand, right? So, yeah. But then you have this man, Peter, right? The Holland Spider-Man, as Pika's being reasonably here. Even without tech, he's ridiculously resourceful, has all the great capabilities of Spider-Man, and stands to people, stands to the entire Big Three. And without the context of, Broken Bones, with his, versatility and Ted possibly be at, he's very ridiculous. But I think that he would lose to Amazing Spider-Man's, Spider-Man, aka Andrew. Not only because Andrew being a little bit better shot, better fighter than him, mixed scale in comparison, he did a little bit more better in the fight. He took electricity better than Peter. Peter was getting multiple times kind of blissed and bumped, granted with the context, 30 broken bones or whatever, right? He, has out-dodged electricity a lot more easier. I think he's more perceptually faster. In his movies, he seemed to be a lot more of a kind of athletic, more efficient regard of web slinger, and has a lot more rack of all trades shining to be done. Granted, this is a very debatable fight. I just feel like Andrew would do a lot more to really especially greater edge him out. Granted, the tech of this man Tom, if you offered him that, might get him better closure of the fight to credit him with being able to greater overarchingly stand over. But then you have Sam Raimi, who's easily more skilled and more better than both. Not only is he the OG, the original GOAT, he has unlimited webs. He doesn't have a limit like they do. He's done a lot more. He's a lot more crazier. Got veterinary scaling. He's done a lot more sensibly, higher standing people. He's arguably faced better, like, counter, to what he's done, and stood decently of somewhat of, like, relative regard. He's rocked with better assortment of different people to a great grandstand, and to me has been showered a lot of different displays of PK feats and accolades that make him strong. Plus, the scaling chain has been disputed, talked, debunked multiple times, that just because from a feat regard that these niggas scale higher does not take away the fact that the scaling presented is consistent, sensible, and reasonably applicable to the case of, the reasonable height that Toby should have. And Crisis has explained it beautifully in a long video. But Tom is not on the same level as him. Toby was able to outspeed this man, Andrew Garfield. He was able to catch him lacking, and he just knows how to do more. So he's also just physically way stronger. So yeah, I don't need to explain why the GOAT is here. But then we got, this man, Eddie Brock of Venom, being not just ridiculously a whole different magnitude of a vicious Black Air Force energy wild beast in human skin, but the fact that Venom of Spider-Man 3 not only was multiple times outboxing and outmaneuvering and deliberately just trolling on Spider-Man. If it wasn't for the environment, and even with the environment, he still was out of the record of, comprehension for Toby. And if it wasn't, again, for the environment, situation, and context, he would all around more severely put the beats on him and possibly kill him. And he was going to kill him if it wasn't for Harry stepping in and Venom context coming into play. So, yeah, and also if he wasn't playing around with him. He also, just by all statements by Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi, and everyone involved, is a stronger version of Peter. The narrative shows him as that. In the comics that talk about, his build-up to become Venom and give him a little bit more depth, he not only has all the memories of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man and knows how he fights, he was able to do a lot more. And even if you want to argue Tobey is more experienced, I would like to actually, generally, no diss, I want to know how is Sam Raimi beating Venom without the context that was had in Spider-Man 3. How? One-on-one. No possible ways to make bombastic sounds. No ear rape. No random case of fucking, chain bell sound. Nothing like that is going to work on him. So he would just best him almost every time. He has all of his powers, all of his style, all of his agility to a greater regard. And it was said verbatim to be the strongest Spider-Man villain at the time. I don't know about being greater than Sandman, because again, rock, paper, scissors shit is how you beat Sandman, and this Sandman should be to a higher form, right? But I would like to say that you could argue just on comparative stand, he did a lot more damage to Spider-Man than what Sandman could do emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So yeah, this man's a devil. But then Sam Raimi in the black suit, which is where we could argue this being a never-ending fight, they both would be of the higher class scale. I think with all the scaling to consider with the MCU, that obviously Venom would scale to because of common sense scaling. But the fact that obviously, right, the fact is that in the sense of, this man Peter having greater showcasings with the webs, the scaling he's able to do, he's faster, stronger, more capable. I think there's a lot of arguments to just proudly say that he's just beyond what Eddie Brock could do in the grand scope. Don't get it twisted. I think they'll have a very contingent fight. And there's an argument that Venom would be greater than Sam Raimi's Spider-Man at base. But with the same symbiote, with the same capabilities, this would just kind of be a draw-out record of match that I see Peter getting the dub on. Not only from his will, his capabilities shown. I would argue that he has done a little bit more of ridiculous craze matter of agility and skill with the symbiote. And even though I can't really tell you who's more skilled, who's more this, who's more that, but I would argue that my man Peter has as much reasonable record or capability to be more skilled and more capable of a fighter than Eddie, because Eddie is just very much strength. Granted, he has all the memories, he has all the skills, he could utilize what he got, but Eddie, personality-wise, is craven just for the killing and this devourment of Peter. He's not really all up there when it comes down to fighting prowess and wit, so I like to say that Peter can edge him out. You can't give them whatever either one, but I just see him, being better all around. Then you have this man, T'Chaka, right? A.K.A. being the father of Black Panther, one of the, first different hell regard. Black Panther, forgot about Bashinga. Obviously, Bashinga don't got no scaling, but I wanted to mention him because I'm very intrigued about him, the great-great-grandfather of, T'Challa, and I'm hoping that Bashinga gets shown in that Wakandan show, or do they make that actual show? Bashinga, the first Black Panther, would be an epic thing. Ryan Coogler needed to direct that bitch. I know he's never directed a TV show, at least for what I know, but you the best man for the job, gang, right? And if not, them same niggas that be making like Spartacus this, Spartacus that need to get on that shit ASAP. But still, yeah, but because of his vibranium suit, skill, assets, capabilities of that sort, he should be beyond. I could see, because I was kind of debating, like, would Sam Raimi with the symbiote be so much more? But if I don't think that Venom could be so much more, I don't really see. Because not like Venom, I don't think actually get through their, armor slash defense. But I think the ways to take out Venom could easily be, like, activated through the record of him trying to hit them. Because, like, here's the thing. Like, a lot of people below got metal, they got all this stuff, and obviously big, iconic sounds and specific items work. But vibranium is a different type of metal. And don't get it twisted. Venom, another iteration, because he hits somebody of great armor doesn't mean, and now I'm just causing ear rape to myself. I'm not causing distortion and basically dissolving my brain, so he's not going to disaffect from what he's going to be able to do from the curve, him getting, his claws basically clocked off from higher metal. But if you wanted to full on out fight, I see the possible awareness coming more into play with the people above, not only because they can utilize sound or shock waves or kinetic things and utilize kinetic energy or the environment be shown, but the fact that T'Chaka and T'Challa are reasonably both smart niggas, right? Sorry for that, where, they are able to just outdo whatever he can throw at him and beat him decisively. So to me, I just think that, he wouldn't be able to beat him. And that goes for T'Challa, better skill, better showcasing. He said to be greater than his father. Falcon with vibranium, aerial combat, the shield, all these different skill regards would just be above, right? And said to be ridiculous. Peter Quill, because of his gadget skills, ridiculous agileness, and stupendous, skill and marksmanship would be here. Shuri is mixed to say, but it wasn't for a bunch of context for why she was able to beat Namor from disadvantage, his own arrogance, arguable stupidity, if you want to stretch. The fact of the matter is that, she used opposite biology, physiology to him, to put him down, and he didn't have enough water to possibly best her. And the fact that she did things in the mix of the fight to mixed regards that with this weaker version, Namor was able to put some matter of, great harm and stand to. So, yeah, like, that's pretty much it. Captain Marvel is just way too wacky of a durable person. Her cosmic powers would just be a little bit too much out of their zone. She would be able to brush, crush, bound, body, and with her greater aura, feel, would be able to me just all around dominate and press them a little bit too hard. And I think unless you're so dummy wildly stronger, or you have a lot more hacks that can kind of push past that, I'm going to be honest, I just think physically, which is a lot of the things that are going to work here, can't work. Her light rays and other aspects, shit that hails from Captain Marvel and like sunlight and different shit should be a little bit more too powerful. Red Hulk need to be talked down to be beaten, and he gets, just as much of the argument for progressively getting stronger the more and more he gets angry. So he'd just be too unrelenting to be put down, so he would just body them constantly and just be too much of a Horaloo colossal just behemoth that would just dog walk through the fight. So yeah, simple as that. Next we have powerhouses, right? You have Malekith, who with his hacks, record hold, being a very skilled, ridiculous dude, different, weaponry and different credit, shit like that, reasonably should stand much more higher. He could just outmaneuver and utilize different portions of, the, reality stone and his natural born gift of just being a lot more durable and hale than them, and scaling at least decently to Thor of the Dark World, and Thor basically coming to God of Ragnarok, and should just beat. Sif was said to be second in skill to Thor, obviously at a time where a few other people are mixed different, not there, but her skill, different accolades, and I know that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is not canon, but a lot of stuff that she does do in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think that she should have reasonable classification and hail to be able to reasonably best and be better. Sif is very skilled, very crazy, and has a lot of arguments for being that. And even though she didn't do shit to Gorr the God Butcher, she did survive a fight with him to an extent. for whatever context it was. So I think she would like push past a lot of what they got to throw at her. You got Valkyrie, whose skill and accolades I feel like were reasonably pushed past. She was able to survive a fight with Hell. Very skilled, very crazy, and was said to be the greatest warrior on Asgard for a very long fucking time. And yeah, you have Loki, whose mischief capabilities of the most crazy illusions, magic, other shit would just be too impregnable and crazy and would push past a lot of these people and just put him down for the count. I also think his skill and a little bit of scaling he did to Thor would allow him to overcome a lot of what they got and allow him to be a lot more cracked and ridiculous than some people expect. And I think a lot of just what he can do with the illusions talk with Mysterio will be a little bit too much. And I think he can weigh people down, put them down for the count, mess with their minds, mess with their way of fighting, and just be crazy enough to beat him. And yeah, I mean, I just feel like that's just where he's at. And all the way into Thor Ragnarok, which is the version we're talking about. This is just an image, right? It's just ridiculous, to say the least. But then you have his mother, Frigg, who's a greater sorceress than him, trained by witches, ridiculous in craft. She taught some things, that Odin knows to, him, meaning that she could utilize in different form. And these being, like different wacky form hacks, possible battlefield removal, usage of the Odin force. Is decently skilled person and fought this dude, did die by him. And, she did all around get flinged like a dummy by this man, Laufey, right? But she is still very much skilled regard person and just using the statements and accolades from Odin, Thor, Loki himself, which you could all say these are very anecdotal and very biased because this is like their family member. This is Odin's wife. This is the mother to Thor, not biological mother to Loki, but Loki generally loved this woman a lot. So, yeah, like simple as that. The Destroyer is a enforcer that is ridiculously, unimaginably powerful. First of all, I don't even think a lot of shit from below him could work. He's too ridiculously powerful. I think there's an argument they could not really figure out how to use his weakness against him and push, his own Odin force back into his fucking mouth. He can regenerate from arguably anything they could throw. He's ridiculously durable, way too powerful. Was able to slap around the Warriors 3 and is a ridiculously capable dude. And without a doubt is out of the league for a lot of people. And is skilled in his own regard and ridiculously, powerful and could just dominate a lot. And I only put War Machine over, and obviously a few others, from being a lot more stronger than him, could clap his head and basically make him explode from the inside. And as well, right, and I know somebody might say that about Red Hawk, but it's the fact that his laser, his Odin force will be too potent. And the way this man, Red Hawk, fights, I don't see that happening. And again, it's the durability, it's the scaling that gets him there, obviously. So, argue with that wall if you want. But again, I see him being over because of his better round, capabilities, tech, assets. He could use his, techno cannibal to plunge down into his, two-side mouth and make him eat himself with all that power. But I think it's mainly just some survivability, capabilities to push past and eventually maybe set up the right, creative, shot or coming up with, different means of wild antic of shooting powers and things along those lines to instantly go about full wall up of blaming the Destroyer. And I could see him, if you want to argue, maybe knocking him down for a good minute. But I think this would be kind of like a battle of attrition, who really lays down the better dominance in the fight. But I could see a little bit Destroyer winning because, again, I just don't really see how do you beat that? Like everyone else, I can see it. How is Rhodey beating the Destroyer, bro? Like, I'm kind of questioning myself now, but I just think that he got a lot of in his tank to get it done. I believe in Rhodey. So, you can say maybe that's not really an argument, but I believe he gonna get it done. And he has more argument because he actually scales to a lot of other stuff. So that's also a big point. If you just think that he scales to a greater other record of people, he could just, stampede a Destroyer. But man, the Destroyer, it's kind of crazy how powerful a lot of characters are, even if they're in one-off shit. Because Destroyer, I really wish he would be shown more. I think he's a very interesting foe for Thor to face. And I just love his name. I love his design too. But yeah, you got this man, Black Bolt. So him speaking is a devastating boom for any person. The reason why he even has different mixed credit scaling because he's said to be the strongest, except for Strange, of the Illuminati. These are mixed matter of members that have different accounting and resort, being kind of mixed insinuation by fact of the matter facing like a version of Thanos, which is mixed on that actual impression, different scale and different hijinks and highball to shit. And the fact that even though yes, they're mixed reference stand and that stuff, and different resort to being actually just kind of like one-off whatever creative characters because niggas don't know how to write these underrated characters, especially this, fucking one man army to the most ridiculous form. This nigga literally gasping for breath could haul niggas away in the most ridiculous way. Like I'm talking, this man, right, is able to by just shouting cause a planet level destructive fuel of power to where he's able to cause earth shattering, not just again power, collapse of in most people's cases, standing, is able to crater niggas with a fucking just shout. But a yell, more bombastic, more ridiculous, more robust, way more highball, audacious work. Like he is just a unstoppable force with just all different aspects of speaking, and a dominant figure that most niggas can get close to, can't stop, and can do a lot of different ground control and creative ways to kind of just annihilate people off the senses. I mean, I'm talking his shot is so ridiculously robust and ridiculously crazy to think about that he could be on some different epitome of like, a mega level mutant and power burst, could skludge down, batter, wreck shop on punk asses, you know what I'm saying? I mean, he could be on the line of like, crazy like clack boom of fire in his like not just only like speaking and also in his way of fighting with his voice, to where it could be like Dre's father in Genevieve season 2 most likely, where he goes ape shit and calls a sonic array of bombastic creative things, not only allowing him to literally just speak the fucking skin off of Venom and Eddie and Peter or whoever he fights, but just entirely decimate those around him. Now there's a problem. All of this is mixed credit of being scale comparison. And I obviously am a big fan of Black Bolt. No Blaze, no matter of them talk, even though I kind of did, hype him up to a good regard. But this man, while, with his actual, scaling account to be found, with the fact that he hypothetically, if it wasn't for, this nigga Reed, bitch ass nigga, telling Wanda his weakness, removing his mouth, depleting his organs, and crushing his head and making his ass look like fucking a tomato crushed, literally gouging out his brain from the inside out, skludging it, making it look like fucking applesauce. That happening, but his actual reference beyond just all these different talks and assertion and that mixed claim that he could maybe stretch one shot Wanda in a different mixed regard. He arguably is a guy that has accounting of doing things or some mixed scaling to the Inhumans. Now, I don't put the greater Inhumans because they don't exist, and I'm only saying this from the greater regards of his scaling. But the reason why I think out of everybody he has reasonable taking is because he actually does do a little bit of something and does say a little bit of something. He doesn't really hold weight, but that's the something that he does. Now, Professor X, for instance, doesn't have greater opening for what he does. And I don't want to scale Professor X, that even though it's probably the best in different mixed matter of impression and selling of, that mindset of, being the GOAT, Professor X, phenomenal actor, playing him in every regard, just to me does not display and define, really the same take of scaling, but he does because he has a single layer of reference. And I do love, his design of what's shown, and I do love the actor that plays him, with whatever acting you can take from him, because Black Bolt, man, is the definition of monotone, man. Can't speak or he'll cause apocalypse, or just much rain of damage you can cause. But yeah, like that should be simple enough. If you would get a great hit on him or really get on him, that would be GG. But I think his voice would be too much that no one would be able to get close to him. and no one would be able to absorb the good record of his shit to where you could probably say to me he would not be able to just shatter instantly. But Electro would not only be able to not be hit for a lot of occasions, be too fast, be too ridiculous, be too crazy, and could zap around and clack around a lot of people and just destroy a lot of people from the inside, entangle their bodies with electricity, and was not even able to be defeated by this man, Amazing Spider-Man, if he wasn't, obviously, going about overcharging him. And unless this scenario is exactly in that area, I don't see anyone figuring that out. And unless you're so incredibly way more stronger that you are a movable object in comparison, he's an untouchable object and could just body, pulsate, and just obliterate a lot of people on a bunch of occasions. So, yeah. But the Fire Giant King Surtur, without his fireball, would be here from being a high regards. He fought Odin in his actual, peak prime, and, was able to do something or at least capture Thor, meaning he scales to him and was entirely getting bested and fodderized by him. So, yeah, reasonable stance to say. Everything to be held and accounted for, right? So, yeah. Thor, of not just Thor, Dark World and way beyond, is ridiculously powerful, could exert electricity from Electro, could depower him, body him. Mjolnir is very crazy, very skilled regard warrior, and has multiple scaling of that regard. Now you got Hulk in a, very much passive, chill, not entirely reluctant to go beastful, but very much, a passive general Hulk. And this is the Hulk shown on decent regard with an Age of Ultron or, from Avengers 2012 to beyond, who reasonably showcase around greater physical, overarching grandstand prowess than Thor. And even with all his capabilities in comparison, Hulk is seen, multiple forms, set in multiple regards to be stronger than Thor generally. And Thor is stronger now, but Hulk reasonably, by all accounting, should be, stronger than what he should be capable of at that point. Hulkbuster against a, again, relative, reluctant Hulk to really spaz out and go crash out savage, right? I think from all of the hacks, materials, adaptation, call-ins, and capabilities shown in the fight, was brawling out and beating the shit out of him. And unless it was for the fact of him, feeling conflicted about all the damage he was causing, the environment, and mixed accounting of the fact of like Hulk not, moving in greater form in some scenarios, which is a big way for how he's going to beat him, because Hulk is just a flaying monster, but with the context being that nothing will calm him down, and he's just a berserk ooga boonga, he would just be able to crush through his armor, push past anything he could do, and just broccoli battering and monkey King Kong 2005 his ass, and he would just get all out wreck shopped. Don't get it twisted, peak fight, definitely peak up there, but no. Malekith with the Reality Stone is here. Now granted, he's just a little bit more boost in his hacks. He doesn't know how to use it to the same regard as Thanos or other people in possible mixed matter. He's very crazy and resourceful, and he's boosted up here not only because he was able to overpower, be a threat to others, but die, correct me if I'm wrong, for just being like Ronin and absorbing too much of the power and being exhausted of his capabilities. And yeah, like simply put, he would just be a greater run around of stuff than him in comparison. Now, Cole Obsidian is here from his greater strength regard, greater capabilities, scaling over a higher mixed matter of talk, evolving phase 2, different characters, being said to be the physically strongest out of all of, Thanos' children. A lot of people, top tier dude, brawling out and scrapping and being able, even though it was a terrible pilot piloting him, be able to rip through and break open the Hulkbuster, meaning that he scales to something way stronger than phase 2 Hulk, said by the novelization, the Runo brothers, and everyone involved in the case of, the Hulkbuster's design and stand. The Hulkbuster, though, right, is not only greater, stronger, but if an actual competent pilot was, this too, aka Tony, or anyone would use the capabilities they were shown in the, Age of Ultron fight, and just push for that to be the prevalence over Cole Obsidian. He not only has a bunch of ways to fry him, push him back, adapt, push past him, call in reinforcements, utilize higher stuff, utilize his ways of possibly killing him like he did in the Wakanda fight against him. Not exactly the same, depending on the environment, but possibly use a lot of different creative ways to dominate an all-around best co-obsidian in the grand scope to get the triumph, over him. But Age of Ultron is going to be a big thing for entirely the tier list, as Ultron himself is crazy in the matter for his capabilities. At his core, he's able to outmuscle Thor, stand pair to pair to other people, outbeam and outmuscle Iron Man. He was said to be a greater threat than anything to be had. He was able to be stronger in different forms than Hulk in some different clashes, take his hits, has a lot of different hacks, great intelligence and versatility, and is just regarded as being a crazy, wild, ridiculous notion of character. So, yeah, without a fucking doubt, the nigga is ridiculous, bro. But this dude that is the right-hand man to Malekith was not only able to take the greater form blows and make sure his shit, then, this man, Malekith, in comparison, right, as melee's his hacks and ranges, putting him, higher, as he's basically on the same mixed matter of their ability, but that will consistently having better, wage ability to get past and just using greater array of dark, crazy magic and accessories. But he's just ridiculously way more held, durable, skilled. He's took in Mjolnir like no other. I think he was able to stop Mjolnir in his tracks and try to bong in on Thor. He's a ridiculously strong, capable foe, fierce fighter to an extent, and is one high-grade skilled person, is being said. Sorry for fan in the background. But yeah, Abomination is way stronger now, rocking with Wong, and Shang-Chi has evolved, rock with a stronger Hulk, which is Nerd Hulk here, who should be stronger than him, not only from what's shown in She-Hulk, but as well shown multiple times deliberately in multi-contrast of being way more heck of regard, stronger dude, even if he's not as strong as Savage Hulk and is a D grade from the GOAT Hulk, right? He still would just be reasonably way different yards stronger. Killmonger and T'Challa, should be self-explanatory, having the way greater durable suits, ridiculous skill, makes hacks and counteractions, it can anti a lot of shit, and a very skilled regard people, and has been able to push past and mix counter different mixed matter of methods by other people to stand where they are and their scale and capability, and to me is without a doubt comparable with the skill and different matter of shit that make them what they are. And T'Challa, was able to one shot and bong out Co-Obsidian, and with just, from his skill and capabilities and setup with Ant-Man and everything he's done, his speed, his skill, would be able to burrow for a lot of people and body them and knock them out. I know it's crazy to say that T'Challa and Killmonger are greater than these people, but again, the scaling speaks for itself, the feats speak for themselves, the capabilities and all of them record is way more, and nothing they throw would hurt them because they just kept absorbing that energy in the fights that happen in way greater. And unless you are so more mountain, greater range, stronger than them, like Thanos or the people above, for instance, I don't really see sensibly why they couldn't take everything these niggas throwing and take it stronger, right? I really don't. And there's also just the fact of them just being so much more skilled that I could see them outmaneuvering and whipping around them, and it really depends on the environment to say that they would be, taken out. But then Ebony Maw, aka Grace Squidward, is not only, ridiculously crazy with his telepathic capabilities, can move around a lot of these people, can use telepathic capabilities to find ways to kill them. He was able to, even though mixed context and kind of flicky, kind of weird, contradictory with the scaling, be able to harm Iron Man and Doctor Strange. It was mixed out of nowhere, off guard, and first come, first serves, running up, trying to run the fade, Tony. And my man Eddie Maul kind of is weird because his physical scaling is not very good. So in mixed matter, he can be lower, but I think this is where he most definitely would be, just because he could find a lot of ways to open up people, and his telepathic capabilities could open a lot of people up. Now, why people who are mixed matter of, being on the same matter of not really having counters to this are above, not only because it would be too physical stronger, but Pepper Potts and Iron Man have showcased the capability to be as durable and greater than him. Their suits are not made out of conventional vibranium hardened suits. They're made out of nanomachines, son, nanomachines, intricate design armor. So he cannot rip through them normally. He said it himself that you have hard, hide, but let's see if I can take a look inside. He couldn't break through. And their different range, skill, capabilities, what they did in Endgame, and the fact that in this suit, Iron Man was going decently toe to toe against Thanos and bringing a fight to him. I think he could outclash a lot of what Ebony Maw does, and this would allow him to efficiently break down and push past a lot of other people. But then we have one of the most divisive and more headache to be talked about niggas, and we're almost done. A few more points to go. This video is probably pushing 4 hours long. Thank you for watching this long. I love you. And if Al's still here, no, I appreciate you too. But yeah, Namor is a very confusing guy to scale in the MCU. He is going to be in Doomsday and Secret War, so he'll probably show out, right? As you guys know, I'm a big fan of Namor. If you guys see my Xbox profile picture, you know he's my profile picture. I've talked about Namor before. I defended Namor on being a pretty decently solid character. I think Namor as a character is a very nuanced, complex, and beautiful character, and I can't wait, regardless of how it goes, to depict him in my Marvel Rivals series. But with that being said, right, like I think the fact of the matter is that Namor in the MCU is a character that's very hard to really quantify because his scaling is very mixed all over the place. The reason why I put him this high, though, is not only because of his powers being a very unique accessory of not just strength and arguable form of caliber, but the fact that he has a lot of mixed matter of credibility to say that he's over some people for multiple reasons. Let's start off with skill. Skill, he would be reasonably, by being the king, Akuku Khan of Talokan, be more skilled than Atuma and Namora, who both reasonably should have mixed matter of scaling argument to be over base, one of the most skilled, high case caliber people in the MCU. He, with that scale, tied with his strength, should be ridiculous. He was said by Ryan Coogler, which I see no contradictions in the actual showcasings, but more mixed matter of scenarios and context that people be intellectually dishonest on, to say that he is not this strong. Everything reasonably reps the ideal and the narrative that Namor is beyond the comprehension of almost everybody in Black Panther 2. This man M'Baku, who arguably does not really have the best argument for, a source on this, did say that Namor hit as strong as the Hulk. Ryan Coogler said in his own words that Namor was as strong as the Hulk in base and underwater was as strong as Thor. Namor is not only very skilled, has decent armor with vibranium. He's a very skilled class person, very skilled with his spear, has possibly the capability to acquire, water bombs, and is a very much, skill efficient regard dude. The problem is that we don't really know how much he could go to with the mixed argument for how much he needs to recharge. As the thing is, Namor's body works off of diffusion. Without going into a big hyper tangent about the real greatest solid, maybe perception of diffusion to work with his skin, is, in the words of Shuri, a jellyfish or a sea creature that needs to utilize air and water to survive by going up into land, surviving on land for a good deal, but needing water to rehydrate and fuel in some occasions, will need to go down to water for a great significant amount of time to resurge. He needs to regurgitate the same rerun of power back to back to be as strong as he is. aka he needs to get a little suck of water to be able to grasp the same matter of physical strength. Granted, a lot of context is reason for he lost. He lost because he was in opposite biology. He was getting heated. He was getting microwaved. He was sent into the desert where, the heat, isolation, whatever the case, talk kind of grounding him a little bit more to the ground and not really being able to do shit, and his arrogance and his pride not allowing him to go get a refill of water, right, put him down. But Namor, because of this weird-ass way of being ridiculously strong, would, to me, depending on the environment, allow him to be ridiculous. No one, I think, except for Tony, which is arguably stretching it, could figure out that he always will be able to keep recharging if he keeps going into water. No one will figure that out. He's stronger underwater, so they will be dead if they follow him underwater. If he takes them into water, I don't see how anyone's surviving, which is why another version of Namor is way more powerful, and obviously no one's going to fight him underwater because it'd be too fair, you know what I'm saying? But in this sense, if you argue it being so unfair, or kind of the statement that I said being like untoo fair, the sense of like greater scaling comparatively that we're taking is because I'm trying to have people be in mixed matter, being in equal standing situations, but more considering just where people would most predominantly be with the scaling provided, not be able to face him. So I'm not gonna have people facing this version, the more up here, right, where he has his helm and his better design, in conversation, right. I really wish they would bring that design Marvel Rivals. I'd love to have that, right? But back to Namor in full. Namor would just be able to constantly keep, strife handing with greater strength, keep restringing in more boosts of power, each credit of different qualm, and would just go full gladiator, full crazy antic fighting. He's fast, he's powerful, he's very dynamic, he's very lucrative in different caliber, and if he's actually as skilled or more skilled than the generals, he's an elite fighter, and I just believe he would beat him. I think the problem is that a lot of what Tony could use would put down a lot of Namor's different mixed moving and advantage of kind of like strength and very much pressure him, but I think Namor's not only a little bit way too much durable because of the vibranium and his physical strength, but as well the fact that Namor is very, capable. He's very much, a versatile and crazed, fighter, like I said, that will be ready to full cruise a buck out and crack out, some crazed, movement with his shit. And like no repetition. This guy is very lucrative. This man is overlasting in a lot of great pit for pit, ting for ting fights. So if he fights this man, Iron Man, I see him with his wing feet and him being able to outspeed different Wakandan ships and stylistically being a horror A standing foe, right? In different cases, the incredible, caliber, proficiency, and different aspects of that, and he can react to a lot of what Iron Man can do because reacting to the Wakandan ships and can prove, the most brutacious, beaming, strong, different Vato, right? When it comes down to speed blitz, corresponding different skill credit of shit, and could just dismantle, full dominate, and ideally just counter out a lot of grandstand of what people can do. Because here's the thing, possibly Namor never got a limit. It's because I forgot. Imperious Rex, like in the comics, boosts his base physical. So every time he says Imperious Rex, it's not just him saying like some warrior chant. That's some Nightwolf shit. When he says Imperious Rex, he grows in strength, speed, endurance, maybe intelligence, like in the comics, and just gets more and more power. So, yeah, like, I don't care what no one says, bro. Again, we could wait until Doomsday to really see what he can do, because to be fair, in Wakanda, he didn't really do that much because of, obviously, he's a little bit too powerful and riding around his ridiculous strength, because Namor has always been an underrated character, right? But, like, this is, to me, the most solid credit of Stan to really put him in the greatest pitch of pulling the most crazy, wacky stand of fighting for these niggas. Now, while the Purple Man is up here with his power and lower than what you might expect, is because his power works in a very weird form. His power is stimuli to the brain. He has the capability to manipulate people's minds by just speaking and causing air gas that makes people bend themselves to his will. So he can ask everybody that he fights to basically kill themselves. But the reason why he's not so much higher because of that is because speed, mental fortitude, the argument that a lot of these people don't have the greater grasp of understanding that, or their minds are not that weak. But I would say this, if we're talking in a general enclosed combative sense, he cannot best, and this everyone else is different. Plus, there's a few like Eternals or God-like beings here that can't actually be affected by mind hacks or their enchantments or whatever they have is too much. Also, like, again, he has to protrude gas, so depending on where you say these characters are starting at in the fight, he can't just be saying, hey, yo, let me tell you something, and just make them kill themselves after that. Like, that's not going to work. Granted, the Purple Man is not very much a very consistent and strong form scale person, so you could go stupid with him and put him very much high, but I think this is the most strong stand for where he could be. And the Purple Man is a very mixed case shown person. The only reason why he gets defeated is mixed context, random eventual mental fortitude over, and it took a lot of great hardy grind for even Jessica to beat him, because Jessica was always getting thrown around physically and always just on near death. And if it wasn't for someone popping out of nowhere and making them flee, that wouldn't happen. Because the Purple Man is literally just a normal nigga. Like, he's not the purple guy. He's the Purple Man. He fucking sucks. He's not a very durable dude or does anything. So I could see an argument just everybody speed blitzing him, but it's only because he's so off brand. But I'm gonna be honest, like now I've been looking at him, bro. This guy, I'm not even sure I won't even keep him here. But with everything, because again, it's just so much of a mix, hard to scale. Because you could keep being stupid, or you can keep being reasonably logical, but weird about it, and say that depending on how the fight starts, if Purple Man just speaks, then it's different. But there's also even an argument like some of these characters don't even take normal gas. Because how would he tell Ultron to kill himself? Like, I feel like I'm kind of, because I don't really think about that, but it's mainly like if the gases are supposed to be some type of gas that affects not just the brain but everything else. Because again, he doesn't actually speak gas. It's a metaphorical mental gas. But is that only to the mind key stimuli? And Ultron doesn't take stimuli. So like, I don't know. Like, you could argue all day with it. And I think it's more like a mutant gas where it's just he can control anything that has somewhat of a conscience. So yeah, and again, the reason why these people be above is for multiple reasons, like I said, but mind hacks, counters, stronger, faster, to a ridiculous regard where he couldn't even get out of breath, right? And just to me, by all assertion, should be better. So all these members of Shang-Chi's family are amped by the Great Protector. They have the different arsenal capabilities and speed to reasonably best them. Being Shang-Chi's sister, Shang-Chi got the armor, weaponry, and a little of the technique of his mother and auntie to sufficiently outdo and outmaneuver and get all around the dub. And even if you want to argue, a lot of people, above or even, credit these people could not, actually find a way to take out Namor's, power thing. It's the fact that Namor would never be able to take them out. And I would argue that, again, if we go by what the fusion is and try to be very scientific, Namor could never grow that strong that he would instantly best. And unlike in comparison where he is actually deliberately just way stronger, right, by, again, the argument at hand is where it's at. But these guys would be so much more, and I could see them knocking him out or sufficiently, especially the Mandarin, right, or just like people with that skill set. But like the Mandarin would be over because if it wasn't for the random trick maneuver of flow wing about, the most crazy means of vertical craze like whip around of the rings and taking them for his own. Shang-Chi, I don't think would all around best his father, as even though they were being clash to clash, bang for bang, and his father was mixed matter of holding back or not trying to full kill his son as confliction, because his entire motive in Shang-Chi is to see if he can gain his wife back through the call of the Great Dragon, aka Fing Fang Foom, of the basically alternate world. He just simply put is just beyond his comprehension, and with the rings, he's just ridiculously adept, cracked, and undisputed, like boulder of hands with the 10 rings. Like, listen, I would have loved for him to fight Iron Man because he is an Iron Man villain, but man, I would love to see how Tony Stark would beat him, to be honest. He's ridiculous. But then his sister-in-law, aka auntie, aka Shang-Chi's auntie, would be, in this case, way more greater with the matter for the case of, skill, flow state, weaponry, amped by the Great Protector, Shifu, Sifu, like staying sense of like style and credibility, with shit, to where, she would be so much a higher grandstanding. She has so much credit being, a master class of her shit, being only second to her sister, who was the guardian of the place for a reason, and being so fearsome in that stance that I would say that, she would do the exact same things. Her sister, though, was on a whole higher grandstand. She was said to be, counted to be, showcased to be. She danced around the Mandarin like no other. Her flow and great sage movement, her sheath way, is so stylistically more unprecedented and crazy that she would be able to push through a lot of people's things, use a lot of stuff that people would try to throw at her against them, and just be able to surgically unravel and pretty much clean flow, dominate, and mistakenly, I feel like, zone out people in different movement and just be able to be so clean, gritter, cutter on people that she would not only pop into her flow state, but be on her Miyagi shit, where she's just so much of the gold standard of efficiency and martial arts, technique, dualism, and mysticalism, that she just gets on a whole different grounds of cracked once she gets on. And depending on the stay instance, what she does with her wind mixture, could take the water from the moor, could utilize all the tech and different matter, different shit against them, and just on a whole different crack regard of durability and capability. And again, she was able to beat the Mandarin. She put that nigga on his butt not once, not twice, but 3 times. It made that man go home and reconsider. I mean, he beat his, a bunch of different grade A people, but he couldn't beat this woman that was out here utilizing the most weird, trippy matter of force and basically beat this nigga with the force. I've never seen people be straight out of Chinese mythology and Star Wars before. These niggas built different. So the technique is what really strikes them above. But don't get me started on the fact that Mandarin got his ass beat by this woman and reconsidered his life and went back, and not to, run the fade back with her and try to go and pillage, her home on fuck means. Nah, he came there to propose to her. You beat my ass so much that you're the type of woman I like, that could put me in my place anytime. I just want the type of woman that would actually kill me. So, yeah, that right there, that just proves my point. That seals the deal right there. But, yeah, that's it for powerhouses. Next is Metahuman, right? And, at the bottom, we have Kingo. Kingo is a very versatile and efficient, marksman and shooter of the Eternals. He doesn't get affected by mind hacks, is very powerful, is crazy, can create a lot of different assortment of shit, is a good shot. He can create any matter of, cosmic plick energy. He pop off with the John Wick, Clint Eastwood, Rango, Ranger type stance moves, and could just dabble in different matter of, the most crazy regard of shooting and efficiency regards in that sense, to where I think he would just body a lot of people. The reason why the Wasp and Ant-Man are higher than him is not only because of them being weird people to get actual solid shots on, but they're mixed up of, being tiny, big, their skill, capabilities, mixed matter of gadgets would be a little bit too much for him. I think, if he gets a solid shot on him or anyone else, it could be GG's, because he's a very high scale person, and his hyperversal, like cosmic elite rays and different dabble, and again, different, Don shooting and basically popping off with the most whoppy-doo crazy speed and efficiency would definitely dominate and full surgically pop open a lot of niggas. But I think, simply put, his play of things is a little bit out of the zone for a lot of these dudes to really pull, that you could, credit to the best regard of just being way out of, the zone for them in the grand scope. And I just see that, Wasp being too much for him to piece him up, Ant-Man being too much as well. But, the Wasp is a greater martial artist than him, but he showcased Cable stuff with not only being able to tango with some different mixed matter of people. When he gets large, he's way too strong and big for him, and is ridiculously powerful in other creative ways, and can one-shot a Leviathan like Hulk, is able to body different matter of people. He can do a lot of capabilities. If you want to stretch, he could go up your ass and explode. And he's just ridiculous. Like, he's just a ridiculously crazed fighter in different matter of shit. His gadgetries, his own martial arts skill. And even though Kang is a jobber, when we take in, the bad writing, he was able to, fight with him and tussle with him for a great deal and give him an all-out fight. Now, Sandman is just too much. First of all, he's a fucking cloud of sand. No one can actually formally hit him. The core of Marco is arguably everywhere all at once, so you can't even actually hit him. He's too much of an overlaying large foe that I don't really see how anyone could get around him. He would drown, bash, engulf, suffocate, just consume. He would eat people with his regardless shit. And the only way you would be able to stop him is if you either have rock, paper, scissors to beat him, like Iron Man with this version, his strongest version, or you're Electro, his stronger version, or you're way more powerful, or there's no actual sensible way you should beat them in the end. Because not only should, when they hit you, you possibly could turn to glass, are there so much of insatiable, ridiculous regards of power and hypothetical energy manipulation and mind hack. He still has a brain, so theoretically the mind hacks above should still beat him. And there's just a lot of ways with like telepathicness and fighting force, speed, and all this shit that just should beat him because he's kind of a wonky character. Because again, he literally is a fucking cloud, but it is what it is. Iron Man could beat him by all his different greater hacks, all his greater hacks capabilities, and tech is greater. He scaled to a very much great, strong Thanos. He'd arguably did better against Thanos, even if it was not the same powerful Thanos. He can pull a lot of the most crazy, trippy, regardless shit, and was able to scale to a stronger version of Thor and all that, and utilize his power and absorb it. So a lot of his shit is on the same merit. He's kind of just the exact same as he was in Infinity War, but with higher voltage and kineticness and pull shit, and did a lot more in his fight in Endgame. So I would like to say that he could beat him. Elektra has the arc reactor and is just as powerful as Iron Man to a way more ridiculous regard. So with that being said, he would just be able to electrocute, dominate throughout the fight because he can't be touched, and just electrically, atomize and grind away a lot of people's, gear and shit, and possibly explode them, just be a ridiculous mass amount of bloodshed throughout. But Fenrir will be way too powerful for anything he does to work. If Fenrir got a good hit on Elektra, would be never. He would instantly get fucking smushed and or entirely, split in half, right? He would get entirely, mold by Fenrir if Fenrir could in the grandstand. Shang-Chi with the 10 rings is ridiculous to think about, but even in then, I think there's a mixed argument that he couldn't full grand scope take out Fenrir. Granted, Fenrir is just mainly a very durable shawty that could overarchingly, be so much more powerful that you could say she could be over. But to me, Shang-Chi is not only as much reasonably powerful, but with this stuff, he has all this kind of technique, all his capabilities. He's enhanced by the Great Protector. He's very powerful. Has been marked as a Avenger by Wong, and they are looking for the best people for the job. So obviously, yeah, Wong is reasonably on high standing there. And before that to be said, I think not only is my man Shang-Chi ridiculous in a lot of ways, but I think just with technique and skill, even if you want to argue Fenrir is dang near unkillable, because Hulk even normally killed Fenrir. I don't know if he even did just by his own way, because he threw her off of the endless river of Asgard, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is infinite. So he possibly didn't even kill her. He just threw her off the map and she just keeps falling, right? So, if it wasn't for that, Hulk could maybe not even won. But I think just they're so much more stronger. They do a greater display of shit. Hulk was actually able to push away Surtur, start beating on him, right? And corresponded as well with the fact that, Shang-Chi's technique and skill is, of most high renown, right? Thor in pre-awakened state, Thor Ragnarok, will be booming different with his raiding capabilities to where he could one-shot, zap, absorb, and entirely annihilate and just clap, a lot of different people. He will be stomping, broing, the most creative, badass ways of whiplash and clap buying and just bodying people, right? Just broing, the most epic scale, ready to thunder clap, niggas out of commission. And it'd just be, again, a higher regard stand than a lot of other people, to the point where I see very efficiently, very, undisputably, him just cracking out way more higher voltage each time and putting past them. Even if you want to say there's a theoretical limit in Great Burst, he was able to do creative things with it. He was able to knock back Hulk. He was able to knock back Hela. He came into his full great potential. He arrived to a higher standing of power capability than whatever is to be shown in all-around grandstand. And his ridiculous, robust, not just power, healing factor, and capabilities is something never to be messed with. He is ridiculous. He's ridiculously powerful, and is definitely not a motherfucker to, dare trifle with. But Hulk, still by all different measure, is as equal to him, higher, stronger, and Hulk, pre-fighting Thanos, was the best challenge he can, and Thor, with this power, could not even fight Thanos, right? And this is Thanos, if you want to argue, quote-unquote, being powered by a Power Stone or not, Older was beating the fuck out of him. He beat this nigga to a bloody pulp. Hulk was ridiculously way more out of the league for Thor and was beating him to a pulp, sacking him, slugging him, glorified, battering him, but wasn't on a greater grandstand regard in the same sense, of range and grand bursts of power. But if we want to talk about, in the end all be all outlasting, Hawk I think can. He'll get more angrier and angrier and keep fighting, while Thor will be more and more draining and not really full fly, with the case of the same shit, you know what I'm saying? Of strength and endurance, and Hulk will eventually get the jump on him, rocking clap, getting bop and sock way too much, and to me all around full form, go pounce and demolition, through everyone else in comparison with this form, right? Which was just being too much insatiable strength and having boundless possible recovery, and unless you're so ridiculous way beyond him or you have a lot of hacks and capabilities to concede to the idea that he could get so overpowered by skill and different bringing of bigger pain smoking pound for pound indulgement, to me I think that concludes to the fact that again he would just all around just stomping grade A, foderize and best of all the odds, and a lot of your ways of besting him, either he would outlast, you couldn't full kill him, or you all around can I think knock him out to suffice to give credibility to all around, Greg bombing out with him in the all around grandstand. Now, the more with his not only, credit of the fact of him in water, we're not having people fight him in water because that would be overkill for a lot, but it's the fact that his greater power being strong as Thor, arguments for him being very skill regard, and tremendously greater peak of, power and accolades, the mixed matter of other people would be a whole different submerge of power than them. Not only from everything I said about them more by default, but the fact that just with that statement, you could do more goofy shit with it. Boom, he's next to the Infinity War and Endgame version. Okay, boom, he's now able to fight Gore God Butcher. You could be stupid with it. But I think it's consistent, not only because of the last record very much known, but mixed as well counting of the fact that he obviously needs to show this. I think all we can gauge from what he's done underwater, as he never showcased how powerful he is underwater, is so tremendously way stronger. He could grow so undeniably, relentingly, limiting, and could have literally insatiable, immeasurable amounts of power. But this kind of like stated really clearly, boast of power is very mixed, and again it's only in one accounting, and this is the version more where I feel like you can reasonably say don't got scaling. But if I had to theoretically try to guess and mix matter of best perception and mixed matter of what's lined up for us for the taking of the scaling right now in the MCU, he does not really have a definitive placement, but in the best possible narrow prec of trying to be the most, hypothesis, this is a reasonable stance, not only from the statement, the skill, the merit, and the fact that he is so much of greater grandstand power pool that, again, no one could really match his theoretically, bound strength, where he just will be out here check bopping, credit clacking, knockout Hulk, take whatever Thor could throw at him and push past, break open the defense of Shang-Chi, get a hold of him, maybe, actually put this motherfucker Fenrir in water, and a lot of, the capabilities, electricity, this and this and this and that, he'll be able to push past. And I also think, he's just so much stronger physically that the electricity burning and spazzing out for him, too much in greater case of, voltage and hail like Zeus, he wouldn't get full smited or just disintegrated. So yeah, but Vision as a sentient weapon, the mainline Vision, would not only be greater because of their hacks, capabilities being the exact replica in one hand, and one having the Mind Stone, intangibility, invisibility, almost cloaking, super strength, super speed, able to outmatch Thor and all different mixed merit, and the fact that Vision is still a high class, regarded fighter in a lot of ways. So yeah, simple as that. High combatant. Next would not only just be the record of a bunch of people of higher class, grander, power stand, but would just be ridiculous people to think about. You have the Deviant that absorbed Gilgamesh, absorbed Ajax, and is ridiculously powerful, able to absorb, be a threat to every Eternal, and every person can absorb life energy and would be just a living fucking anteater for a lot of people. But people who obviously way greater, stronger, and powerful would be better, like the case of Thor and Avengers Infinity War. From Thor Ragnarok has grown way ridiculously powerful, had the power with a random fucking axe throw on an off guard Thanos to be able to push all the way to maybe killing him if only he went for the head. But yeah, he is ridiculous in a lot of different form of hail and power. But Thor from Endgame would be stronger, not only because of the fact that he has a reform and rebirth of Power Stand now, but the fact is that he uses Stormbreaker and Mjolnir. He's dual wielding two very powerful versions of his greater, what's the word? Not just like channel of power, but cup of power. And a lot of people try to argue, oh, he's fat, or he's not as much in the same greater scale, or he got a lot more cooked. Well, one, Thor from Thor Ragnarok Infinity War regardless would have got beat by Thanos regardless. He doesn't have the greater showcasings, and also who cares if he's fat? There's so many characters in the MCU that are mixed big bone, are not the most physically in shape, and are powerful. Odin by mixed decree is fat. Y'all love Thor from God of War. A lot of people is literally using Thor as God. It's kind of funny to say, because I love when people make this argument. It's not backed by any actual sense of matter of actual scaling or logic to be pointed through. But a lot of y'all love Thor from God of War and use Thor from God of War as like a gotcha on this man Thor from the MCU in design, accuracy, and different hail. Don't get twisted. Thor from God of War is my favorite version of Thor of all fiction. The red, jolly, black Air Force energy behemoth. Reasonably, he's on a great A pedestal for a reason. The man that is the only motherfucker to slap up Kratos in the way that he does. Absolute, undeniable him, bro. But Thor being fat does not change anything. And like I said, laughing aside, y'all use Thor God War as a gauge, on this man. So I don't know how y'all can really even try to compare that. And Thor being fat does not disperse the display of what he can do. So with all his pull-in capabilities, his dual wielding, his greater array of, power and array of the most crazy regard, yeah, that just submits Thor as way more powerful to me. Then you have Athena, I don't know, Athena of the Eternals. Her skill is ridiculous, of high regard class. People of mixed matter of the Asgardian fight against the frost giants on Earth put her in high regard. She's said to be the most skilled Eternal, ridiculous matter of skill and merit and hail, and this has divided skill in the matter for how she is so proficient in her way of using her cosmic power to the most ridiculous regard. But Thor with Mjolnir, right, in comparison would be much of a problem, but I think that she would outdo him by not just skill, hail, and the fact that Thor put the Eternals all in high regard. All the Eternals are skilled, all of them are ridiculously high class, and he did look up to them when he was younger. Now, this nigga Captain America with Mjolnir, like I said, I do think Thor in comparison would be much, but this nigga Cap with Mjolnir is ridiculous too. Not only is the fact of the matter is that this motherfucker is enchanted with the power of Thor, as powerful as Thor, but showed greater scaling and was able to open up and bury this nigga Thanos almost in lightning, is way greater. He combinates very good with Mjolnir and his shield, and Captain America's skill is very fluid and efficient. I believe that he could outwork Athena. I think Athena from experience and mixed strategy could best him. I think if we take away the mixed kind of trippy aspect of her kind of going unhinged and random trying to clack and rock and sock and bop with this man, I think that he would all around, definitely, get a good grip and understanding of her, read between the lines and catch her lacking, and sufficely, define, the greatest means of not just dogging them, but also whop on her chin and knock her out, or possibly, if you want to stretch, because the Eternal characters are very hard to even say kill, unlike with Kingo, who, didn't want no part of this nigga Icarus, and unlike Athena, who can be maybe a threat to Gilgamesh, in, again, mixed form, because that's not just, friend, deep compadre, best homie, but as well Gilgamesh holds back, and Gilgamesh is, a chill guy, so, yeah. So, no, I think he would get the decisive victory over time. Very hard diff. But then you have the case of Jane Foster, aka Captain America. She would just be way better with Mjolnir, way more crazy versatility and hacks and capabilities. Would be a whole new herald in this hall of crazy capabilities. Would be way more versatile and higher credit shit, and just be a person that could stack way more and better odds than anything that Cap can really perceive. Is utilize Mjolnir better. It's said by Thor to be better usage of Mjolnir than anybody's ever seen to mix different regards. And I just feel like physically being more emboldened by the power of Mjolnir and using the OG has mixed the situation for the case of Matter being, way more of a greater, stronger person. Right? So, to me, to the best degree, it finally puts her, here. And I don't want to be on repetition with that word. It's just, I think that's the most credible, solid case of timing, to say in this time of like really acknowledging the power scope of, Thor for Love and Thunder. And again, I think it's the most realistic, solid ground for her. I think it's a very good credit, understanding the scaling and talk of that. You know what I'm saying? To say that she, at this time, has extended beyond most different accounting of people. She also was able to somewhat scale the Glory God Butcher. And again, like I said, very, to me, accurate, solid format of, scaling support, to say where she is, and a very fine credit, counting for, scaling stand for where she could be. But besides that, we're at Omega Beast, where greater deal of the tailors are shown. We got Kang at the bottom. Again, Kang, with the writing, is very bad. But Kang of Ant-Man the Wasp Quantumania is very powerful, has a great multi-fling of the most craziest shit. He has statements about killing Thor and other Avengers. He showcased different displays of being very crazy and radically built different in different forms of shit. He got an entire throne room and other shit showcasing of all the victories, wins, and conquerorship that he's done. He has vast knowledge. He has the most crazy radiance and capabilities. And like Jane Foster before him, I think this is a very defined, most common, credible format, of scaling to credit him to, where he is of a high grandstanding than a lot of the most known proactive people, right? And even though we do not know exactly people he's taken out for what is shown and what his powers are like, I would like to define us as being the best merit to really say where he is. I think it's a defined spot in the tier list to put him, right? And he has a little bit more to hold than Jane Foster, at least, where, again, she has a very defined, stance in showcasing for where she could be. I feel like here, in multiple different regards, scaling to this and doing this, he has greater repertoire and realm of creativity to do this, as he is such a bombastic blizzard of crazy stuff. And it wasn't for the most weirdest sneak up absorption and, too much like fuel drive of the most random like bomb off of his defense, right? He wouldn't have lost to fucking ants. And even after that, more highly intelligent ants and getting stampeded, right? Getting fucking squirrel stampeded by some fucking ants, right? Imagine that's fucking Ant-Man's all in Marvel Rivals. He just was staying all around greater form, and Kang is just, to me, a way higher on calling being, and reasonably should not be beaten than a lot of people. The reason why he is like so lower with all that scaling is done again, by the fact of the case of, all these people having multiple, if it's an obvious reasons to be higher godly beings, mind hacks, magic being too unimaginable for him, and the fact that just like, yeah, he only has one movie showcasing his shit. He has statements, he has accredited criteria saying he's ridiculously powerful, and his scaling is kind of mixed weird, but he's kind of weird to really validate on being the higher grandstand, and he was able to make a lot of people some bitches, twirl around MODOK with his telepathy or technology, a lot of crazy stuff, but people just aren't, acceptable to that, or, a higher grandstander, or just way more powerful. I think he would just be all around able to close the gap, close their informer fighting, best people in the grand scope odds, and just be able to, sock a lot of people out and through correspondence of all different type of his, greater tank to be used about his powers, be able to pull a Blue Beetle and just go about full crashing out and full annihilator closing, people in different bubbles and multi rack of all trades, fling of hard A, beats and domination on niggas, right? That he all around would seize opportunity to this glop niggas with too much form of like pack power, you know what I'm saying? And just be able to Swiss cheese and shred a lot of people as well. I mean, this guy is a glorified menace for what was shown. Because again, he was a ridiculous whoppy doo powerhouse with all coloring things. Could be on like an assertion of like Sigma level of this pouring great damage and pressure on niggas. But yeah, I mean, all that aside, Zeus would be here now from being credited being the strongest god on Olympian City, god of the sky, put in high reveredness next to Thor, right? Thor looked up to him. He was just on the same pedestal as like his dad. So Zeus will reasonably be here, in my opinion, and by all credit and qualm of what he can do. Fing Bang Foam would be just way too overarchingly powerful. His magical scale and grandstand would be too much. It took the combined force of the Great Protector, Shang-Chi, and a bunch of other contexts. For what I remember, to be honest, I have not seen the final battle of Shang-Chi in a minute, bro. Sometimes, bro, when I be watching Shang-Chi, I be falling asleep at the end, bro, because I'm not gonna lie, the movie is peak, but, bro, I don't know if it's the time or Shang-Chi's just a fucking airplane movie, bro, but that shit, you sometimes be going to bed on that bitch. At least me, maybe it's me, bro. But, like, for what I remember, on all account of scaling, this motherfucker, Fing Fang Foom, this demonic fish Jormungandr dragon is so astronomically beyond the comparison, of multiple people because of him being a high godly figure of the most revered, terrifying, roaring with 1,000 souls behind him activity of dummy regard powerful that could just slap, slaughter, and just entirely just cram motherfuckers into the dirt multiple times over and is a scourge of hands. But then Agatha and all the rest of these people from her, this dude, Wong, main villain of the Archangel One, has way better boasting and creative magic, has a lot of ways to defeat him, and just have a lot of different spectral creative hacks. Gorda God Butcher would be here for now, the same multiple different mixed matter of gods. Zeus feared him. He has a necro sword that does a lot of creative shit. Opens different field for darkness, battle for removal. You can send people to a pocket dimension, makes bad bypass a different form of durability. So he would be here just because of that and just be way too bonkers and a lot of high scale and a lot of things they could try to pull to him or he could try to pull to other people. He could just do and could open people up. Thor is not only here because he defeated Gorda God Butcher, regardless of perception about Gorda God Butcher's mixed matter of, maybe being conflicted in some different mixed matter, but to me, Gorda God Butcher was full on one stern, ready to kill Thor and was peak aura farming, right? They wasted that nigga so bad. But, like, yeah, Thor not only, like, absorbed the power of Zeus, showed great reactability, but it's, like, ridiculous in different high and water and, regards of power, right? But it's just so astronomically more stronger. Can utilize the different greater things. He has a use of greater, stronger Stormbreaker, showcase way greater pillar of power, and just is so undeniably way ridiculous assertion is stronger than them. And he utilizes greater mixture shit than Zeus because Zeus would just be able to like one shot almost everybody else below him, right? Like he would just be clacking. But when he's actually a god on the same mixed merit or a god that actually has mixed hail, because Bing Feng Foom, or this creature, was said to be a deity of old and one of the strongest deities in the verse and was a threat to the world, right? And on a ridiculous scale. So this creature got out. Not only would this creature be a hell of a fucking hectic beast to face, but this beast would most likely devour him because of this beast being a terror to the mortal world and the godly planes and all this other shit. Thor would be able not only to clap this thing back to back and just defeat its morale, but could actually in a severe greater form kill it. I do know that's hypothetically high form immortal, but I do know that there's a big form of like argument that like Thor is just so much more essentially powerful that he could fully not just, chop away at its skin, chop its head off, leave it down, dominate through the fight, and just close the gap by just clotheslining his ass into oblivion. But yeah, pretty much it. Then you have Professor X's sister, right? Doing most crazy matter of mind hacks, she would be able to make everybody have an aneurysm that doesn't have counters to mind hacks or not applicable to mind hacks or just way beyond our comprehension, right? Or powers is too much. Credit the fact that Precious sister, right, Lil Sass doll herself, which is but a story a lot of people just from having mind hacks in the most ridiculous regard, sledging people's skin off, ripping them apart, making them use their powers against them. She can control people like no other. She's just a Omega level mutant to the most ridiculous regard, Omega Beast mutant without a doubt. But then the Loki variants, right, would just be too much. Loki's Boo, too much. Loki himself, too much. Ridiculous creative hacks. OG, doppelganger Loki, too much record hold of hacks. But then when we get into demigods here, right, not only is, these niggas all beyond a compare of mind hacks, Druid was said to have the greatest mind hacks known to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it's always been kind of a joke, but the Eternals are very powerful. I know a lot of people want to shit on their movie, and reasonably so. But, they are very powerful. That's not to be denied. I know they won't be in Doomsday because the Eternals, they're gone, bro. You're most likely never see. The only Eternal I'd probably say bare minimum you'll see is Cersei. And to be honest, you probably won't be doing too much. But no one of the main line, except for some mixed applicable people, scale actually to the higher dosage, power scale that these people have. And that being by the record of the fact that Fastos, again, is not threatened by mind hacks. His technology, his technological telekinesis, all his crazy creative shit is way beyond niggas' comprehension. He can utilize a lot of different mixed matter of tech, armor, different things, and use it against them. His tech is able to hold the most strongest people. He contributed to a lot of the most highest regard tech, and he could just dismantle, create whatever is needed to defeat a person. He's ridiculously smart. He's ridiculously crafty, and is one wild cosmic individual. Druid can literally bend people's minds to his will. He's able not to do this to his own eternal brethren, but is way more physically stronger and capable, and could utilize his mental hacks or different usage and shit like that to credit him as being stronger. Now, the reason why I have him over Fastos and others do is mainly just because even though he can't mind control him, there's potential that he could utilize his mind hacks for different ordeals of his cosmic usage to figure out different forms how to do it. Druid is able to look inside minds but can't control some. So through that, I believe that he would beat him, and the fact that he can actually take blows from Icarus while Fastos gets pushed aside and gets kind of lapsidately flocked and can't do the greater arsenal usage that he would like to. And the fact, usage of technology aside, there's also the record that, he's a very more defensive fighter. I think Druid could use this to kind of just open him and put him down. But, you could go either way. I think if you don't really perceive him being able to do that much, he could be durable, but he's not doing nothing to Fastos. But Fastos can't do nothing to him. So it's kind of like a draw fight. But, pick whoever you want interchangeable, right? But Makari should easily be over them. Not only is she way faster, Makari has a statement of being the fastest woman in the universe, fastest speedster, glorified ridiculous shawty in multiple records of different form. Unlike Quicksilver, who has mixed argument that could be a lot more faster, in potential if they actually writ him, better, right? If they actually writ him, in a better form of capture of his comic book counterpart, and if he actually was written to greater galore, but as well, too, if his durability to mix AP wasn't shit, he could be ridiculous of a whole different, monumentally fast, right? Because Quicksilver was a speed demon, but his ass is weak. He could be easily harmed by others. He could get almost entirely concussed by falling back from the usage of trying to hold Mjolnir in place, right? There's characters that reasonably should be able to scale to him or easily one-shot him when they eventually get a hit on him. He cannot damage them to a greater regard. And even though he could just move different, again, it's the writing that fucks him over. That's a big thing with a lot of speedsters in fiction, unfortunately. But that nigga literally died by bullets. He got Swiss cheese, got entirely melted by that. So no. But Makari's speed, creative kinetic energy, a lot of cosmic, creative, booming wild usages she would really get on her A train and be a living, speeding Frank train and be able to cannonball people, get on her accelerate, just be wide wicked with the stances of her speed to be considered. But everyone else is just way stronger. Like Gilgamesh could 1-2 punch her, got bombing different power. His shockwaves are immense. Is able to clash with the greatest regard of people. He's said to be the strongest physical Eternal and is like second in strongness to Icarus. Icarus should be obvious, not only from him being the Superman at first of the MCU, but his usage of cosmic power being hella different. He's way faster, can fly, heat vision, like I said, technically. He got super strength, super mixed speed to react to Makari, but it really is just way too mentally faster to where Makari is using her speed to ridiculous regard, but he's so strong that he's able to eventually catch her lacking in different mixed catching and greater form usage of like his strength and shit, that he's able to put her down almost, able to break through the technology of Fastos, has immense, ridiculous, robust power, is ever growing, is crazed like a motherfucker, and is one ridiculously powerful nigga who's able to disperse cloud cover, didn't get instantly, dispersed as soon as he faced the case of some different mixed usage of power by others, and as well, when he went to the sun, he didn't get instantly entirely, incinerated and or felt that much harm coming even just in the radius of it, because that's using greater like scientific and reality to it. But the fact is that his durability and capabilities to be so monumentously drastically strong, demonstrably like at this top, is not too surprising. He came to the sun and didn't even get entirely instant like just glazed over with fry. Like he didn't even have an essence of like having any problems to his formal wear or to his skin on some like I was almost about to spoil Invincible. I'm not gonna do that. But never having that really opening up on his physical side of skin like other niggas might. Again, went to the sun and didn't even get greater case of, haze, skin, of his skin. Just entirely went to that bitch and slowly got disintegrated, but again didn't get full case melted. So with all his shit and the usage of his own cosmic shit to build a skewer and sclep, different people and be on his Homelander timing, I believe that he's up here. Thanos, though, I think is a mixed contingent fight between him. Not only from the fact of him being the Mad Titan, very strong, very powerful, very skilled, but his usage of his, Sentinel Prime Blade is very cool. He's a Mad Titan. He's an Eternal himself in this version. And is a booming, wild, creative person. So I think just hand-to-hand skill and her account would best him. I think Icarus has a lot greater versatility and mixed different openings to put in beats on him, but I think it really comes down to who really outdukes the more, and I think Thanos' skill and capabilities and his hell and scale to other people, and the fact that he was able to have some greater clash with some mixed other people that have been said to have contention, maybe fights with him, but Icarus should not objectively best and win, right? So, yeah, like, to me, I see that not working. Law Fado, because of his Carousel of Winters, I think would be ridiculously powerful. Not only at its prime, what is it able to clash with Odin and his younger mixed bag prime, it has the capability to entirely turn all of Earth into a living, forever ice age. He's able to freeze very much more powerful people, override people to the most craziest regard, and has ridiculous, boundless potential to be, very much as physically skilled and built different regard of powerhouse that pulls from a greater, surge of power that could overlay so much. And if he was able to harm Odin, because he took away Odin's eye, right? I think he could just all around just ding, clock, score, scrape, splinter, through people's defense and just bury people, right? Then you have Hela, who is immeasurably always going to be as powerful as she always could be and more need to be, as she, has never even had a time in her life except for Odin defeating her, banishing her, and as well tied with the fact of being as powerful as Asgard allows it. As her power is all tied to Asgard. So I'm going to explain this when I get to Peter Quill, but it's kind of the fact of the matter is that you have to use the argument that whatever, is their power source is around or is like a live thing, to be in the fights conversation, for her to be as powerful as she can be. And at the end of the day, she doesn't need to be at Asgard to have this be like a relevant thing. But it's the fact that, you know, Asgard is her core of power. So she'll always be everlasting powerful. She also was the greatest fight mixed bag besides Surtur to Odin. She was the greatest threat to Asgard, is beyond a lot to compare. She has a lot of counters to outdo these people, has, ridiculous, robust rack of all trades, multi different ways to assault, pressure wise, and just cog out the defenses and, really just drive the greatest, power burst and blitz and finite, usage of some people's powers here in comparison to hers, where she will be ever ending, even though everybody on this tier, at least, and kind of a lot above, got like endless stamina. She would never be taken out in the grand scope and could just find ways for the everlasting battle to push through. And again, could just really drive a greater spear home with her very wacky, wild, menacing regard, Blacker Force energy to the most elite standing to stand per foot down on these people, and just called a lot of things about Asgard and different matter of people weak. Like, she called the Carousel of Winters weak, but decently, of some weight and power, and outdid and battered, a lot of people across the entire record of, the grandstand of Asgard. She's a one-woman army and is just, comparable in the grandstand. But then Surtur, the Fire Giant King, is way beyond a lot of the comprehension of niggas. He not only is so crazily powerful that he's able to one-shot Hela, destroy all of Asgard, and is a pillar of a whole different matter of wrathful beast that he would just be able to overcome, outdo, and slap everybody out of existence on this tier. But when we get to deity, not only do you have Wanda, whose mind hacks, potential power stand, and all these different things are able to affect Thanos and almost kill him in base regard. She would have killed him if it wasn't for, his freaking, different form of, like, different warships and, context at hand. And just, to me, is ridiculous. Now, I know some people could argue, oh, her, like, base durability is not that strong. But a lot of times when she gets hurt by people, or at times or at points with people that are way stronger, and her being able to bend a mind stone, bend minds to her will, and it's very crazy and colossal, just to me solidifies her at this at least version as that, which is like the end game version. So yeah, like, self-explanatory. Odin, right, is a very crazy dude. I know that Odin has only been in, like, 3 movies, but Odin is wild, whoppy dude, way more crazily powerful than anybody could imagine. Odin is not only the All-Father, God of Ravens, King of Asgard, King of the Aesir, and is said multiple times to be a man that Thor can't even comprehend to be. His magic and multi-accessories, versatility, skill, and other accolades is in the most ridiculous regard. His power is from the Odin Force, a eternal force that allows him to pull all different crazy maneuvers and stay everlasting, ever, defiant of different odds. And can allow him to pull a lot of different charades and preserve himself in the fight. Captain Marvel, though, would be way greater than that, because actually stacking 2 an Infinity Stone, be able to take it. She's went to higher grandstand, power stand than others, and has just done a lot more than ever to be comprehended, really, in different fighting form. So, yeah, she just should be able to buck out and push past them, and her power should just be too much. Now, Ronan with the Power Stone is up here, because the Power Stone, immense power, ridiculous regard. He was shown to be able to body all of the Guardians of the Galaxy if he wanted to. He only died because he absorbed too much, and was definitely a threat to a base Thanos, and could easily on grandstand defeat him from his skill, caliber, and seeming to have ridiculous adept knowledge with the Power Stone just off rip, and not just be some slugging idiot that's literally self-decaying. He knows how to use it. Now, Peter Quill, with the grace of just, man, ego, being now fully on his demigod celestial power, would be so immensely way more powerful than ever, with having great circle of power capabilities to not just make anything up on the fly and be so creative with it that he could best a lot of different people just off of a battle of attrition and a battle of range and versatility. But again, like the argument for Hela, with Asgard always took into consideration for her, ever, lasting, never ending pool of power. Ego always has to be alive for the consideration for him to even be pulling from this power. So he will just able to be coming back to back against everybody. He's immortal, and the only way to bypass that is killing Ego, which, depending on the scenario, can't happen unless you just have a way greater capability, or you're potentially a person that can do things to him that would take away the argument for needing to worry about that, which you can say others in comparison lower could do, but argument they don't do that generally, and that isn't something that they would think of instantly, even though I could see mixed bag arguments to say, but he is just so much more like unimaginably more powerful that I could see him progressing for the fight there. Next we have the man, the myth, the legend, the uncomparable, uncountable, for many GOAT moments, but still slings them back to back into all faces, left and right, that he is the impregnable, impetuous, star standpoint GOAT, Bob, aka most overpowered character in the MCU, Sentry. Now, for real, we have to actually see a little bit more what he can do. But by all the narrative, all the accounts, and him being stronger than all the known great deal Avengers, I would say Sentry and base should be here. Not only was he able to dog walk all the Thunderbolts, he has unimaginably ridiculous runaround of powers. He has a statement being as powerful as like 10,000 suns, right? Crazy amount of their display of power, their pool of shit to be had, reasonably by all different account and statements, be way beyond the comprehension of a lot of these people. And when the void possibly taps in, he just goes about not just sending niggas to the shadow realm, but puffing them to a plane of existence that I don't believe a lot of people will be able to push past. And if they could, it's only not just because of the fact that of them being way more stronger, capable in hacks and higher plane of existence, but as well having ways to counteract not just Sentry, but also the Void, like the Ancient One with, reality warping, crazy technique, ridiculous defying sorcery, Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme, being able to be beyond the comprehension of this man Sentry in multiple forms. His dark variant being a way more cracked regard of that. But then we go to gods of high renown. We have this man, Ego, who is literally a fucking planet and is a whole different grade A stand of like power, and him absorbing, a planet and coming into his full, greater rivalry of a celestial body like no other, to the most hellish regard of power pool and creativity and all different essence, of what he could be, would be on the same level as most different record of Celestials, but these Celestials, by their hail and accounting and just demonstration feats, like this Celestial who created a possible solar system or fucking nebula, like ridiculous. Airsham with the mind hacks and capabilities being on a higher mixed record form of, stance than others. This one having the Power Stone entirely, bodying a planet from the inside. One stamp of his staff with the Power Stone was able to entirely consume the planet in a purple radiation and have that shit kaboom. But Thanos with 4 stones, Space Stone, Reality Stone, you have Power Stone, and the Soul Stone, because he killed Gamora before this. So again, you have Space Stone, Reality Stone, Power Stone, Soul Stone. Would have a bunch of ways to counter people below. Mental will, mental hacks being crazy, and creative, different things. I mean, he has more resistance, but there's a lot of different aspects of that, that come with the case of, possibly people trying to penetrate his skull. But he could push past them. He would already be more powerful than them from what he's demonstrated. He's been able to use a moon. He can do a lot of crazier shit. And if he was really going off, he would be ridiculous. Then you have Doctor Strange with the Time Stone, aka Eye of Agamotto. He not only would, one, be able to use something that's beyond the comprehension of most everybody. The Russo brothers didn't have him use the Time Stone against Thanos because he looked into all the infinite possibilities. And he saw the only way to beat Thanos was if he gave him the Time Stone. But if we ignore the arguable plot relevance, He should just be able to take off the gauntlet from Thanos before he can even look. And unless you're a character that hypothetically with magic can go beyond time, or your mental or hacks, or beyond that, like we got God Loki, the god of dreams and a whole different manifestation, the most crack shit, and Wanda Witch, the dark sorceress supreme, that would just be able to plug the eye of Mogul to their cells, and can just do the most craziest regard hacks. And I'm grateful to say this, but I have some throat pause. And nigga been talking back to back with no recall, bro. We're almost done. We're almost done. Shawty and this man Loki are on a higher plane of power, capabilities, and all that, to say proudly that they should be able to not only outskill and outmaneuver this nigga with the time stone, but be able to take him out before he can greater use all the different wild form, different transcending, mortal regard shit, and again would be able to unplug the Agamotto from him and utilize it themselves, or be so higher crossroad of scaling that would be better. You could argue all day, about being like 50-50 matches, if Loki's really beyond Wanda. I think Wanda is of a whole different higher grandstand because of the capability she has, and Wanda is a freak of nature. But next we have Universal, which is Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet. He has all 6 stones: reality, space, soul, mind, time, and power. You can snap away everybody, and unless you're beyond the universe or you transcend general confinement of his existence, which is the universe, and or can take the greater plethora and all these whoppy do capabilities, he's so unimaginably more powerful. And you can greater understand Infinity Stones now, because he only had 4 last time and he used them in great concession difference, but now he has 6 that can all help him at once push past the higher record regard of power and booming wild ridiculous standing that these people have in comparison to him. So with those 6 stones in mind, he can utilize that in so many different infinite sense of war, against these people below, and maybe against the one guy in the same tier, to strongly solidify him as the strongest villain arguably of the mainline created MCU, and a colossal beast like no other, bro. That's unimaginably a different body of power, is now taking over him, and could just glorify, just lock down, slap up, piece up, deliver multi-case of fucking 4 pieces, and just wreck house on niggas, bro. This full fucking Shaq West niggas, man. But you have Goliath, or Agatha. I don't know, it's Agatha in comparison, right? Because I'm not actually trying to call this motherfucker Agatha, but it's Agathon, because I don't know that's another from saying, but I'm just gonna say Goliath. I think it's Goliath. Goliath, each dimension's self-explanatory. He's beyond the comprehension of Thanos. So yeah, Dormammu is a multiversal being. He has multiple multiverses inside him. He doesn't know what time is because he's beyond time. So you can't even affect him with time in a grand scope. And if you want to say, oh, Dormammu, I came to bargain. It was Dormammu again, knowing how that shit works. He would most likely just full atomize and destroy Strange. And Strange was only able to keep coming back because he kept re-ticking, time back every time he died. So Dormammu was just, again, a way more grand scope, omnipotent being in comparison to them. Then Pillar of Cosmic Might is a being that overwatches all of the MCU multiverse to a great regard, being the de facto watcher that an Omni being, Infinity Ultron, is able to compare to best. And Infinity Ultron is eating fucking universes, or eating concepts. It's a whole glorified, dummy, cracked regard, nigga. Then pay Carter with all these accessories and capabilities of not just the entire What If multiverse that is arguably a grander branch of the MCU multiverse, but is just cracked. But the most powerful Marvel character is Kang, and let me explain. Simply put, Kang in his original core version, the original plan for Kang was Kang to be a version, of the most highest regard and ordeal, to where he could look about all different planes of the multiverse and utilize, every accessory of power, core way of doing things to his own advantage. Kang was hard trolling Loki in season 1 in all regards, and his true actual variant is way more powerful than we could ever imagine. He understands the multiverse like no other. He sees things in a very finite line and set in stone sentiment for shit. He's able to pull things of the more grandest, most wow fathom of power stand. He's entirely a different pillar of power stand than anyone else. And simply put, just as a being, is so A1 level of this catastrophic, OP, unsensibly overpowered credit of being that he's beyond everybody here's plane of existence. So that's why he's not only omnipotent, but grand scale omniboy to the point where he could just decimate, disillusion, entirely deprive of existence niggas. Right? He could literally rights the MCU if he wanted to. So he is just wildly beyond compare. And this is because he has, I think, this device that allows him to pull from all aspects of the multiverse. Allow him to play puppet master with the multiverse, which is why there's so many versions of him. So he can always stay infinitely powerful. So, yeah. Regardless, though, man, that is it. I've been at this for 5 hours, it seems like. I'm done. If you disagree with this shit, like I said before, I hope you enjoyed regardless. My Discord is RPK314. I'm done. I'm hungry. I'm going to bed. I don't even think Val's even here no more. That nigga went to Bangkok. I'm done. I'm out. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all for watching. Peace out, mommy. Love y'all.